notice from 1 to 14 July. If you disagree with your auto assessment, file your return via e-filing. If you don't receive a notice, visit e-filing to submit your tax return from 15 July 2024. Visit sars.gov.za for more information. Your tax matters. SARS, at your service.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarah Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under 15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under 15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under 15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
A host, and I may use that word on purpose, a host of prisoners have been released from Russia in the latest Russia-West prisoner exchange, which has been mediated by Ankara. It's said to have been a very extensive and complicated process involving several countries. Let's find out a little bit more what this means with Dennis Reaver, security researcher at the Institute for Security Studies. Dennis, good morning to you again. Thanks for joining us. I'm getting different numbers. I've got 3 American citizens, 1 green card holder, 16, 26. Do we know what the final number is either way?
Good morning, and thank you for having me. The final number seems to be 24 people, from what we understand. 16 people released from Russia, and 8 people from various countries, Slovenia, Poland, Norway, as well as the US.
All right, what are they?
Of course.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, of course, I just wanted to mention that when it comes to the Russian prisoners, or rather the prisoners held in both countries, there is a case of dual citizenships in several cases, which may confuse these statistics.
What does this prison exchange mean for the bigger global picture?
Well, it's unprecedented in many ways, not only because it is the largest since the end of Cold War. The nature is also quite interesting, the nature of the prison exchange, because from the Russian side, 9 of the prisoners were Russian activists, political activists, human rights activists, or journalists, and 7 were, U.S. and German citizens. And what it shows us is that, despite the fact that previous prison exchanges also took place, and they mostly focused on spies or people convicted of spying, this time around, most of these people did not seem to be affiliated with a particular state or spy agency. Essentially, they were, we can say, taken hostage in order to exchange for actual spies, Russian spies that were convicted for spying in various countries in Europe and in the US. So in many ways, it is unprecedented. And sets a very dangerous trend.
I was going to say, so this is a win for Russia, would you say?
Yeah, one of the sticking points that delayed the whole process, allegedly for 18 months, so this was 18 months in making, was the fate of Krasikov, his hitman, who was detained in Germany in 2019 for murdering a Chechen-born resistance fighter. In Germany, he was sentenced to a life in prison, and Germany was quite resistant to release Krasikov from prison as part of the exchange. So, the fact that we saw pictures of President Vladimir Putin arriving to greet these 8 individuals at the airport, there was a red carpet for them. It's obviously being seen as a win for Russia, but I would say that it's a win for the 16 prisoners that were released from the Russian prison, because, as I mentioned, most of them are activists or journalists, and not really motor personnel.
To be fair,
spies.
President Joe Biden did exactly the same thing. Private jet lands, red carpet. He went and greeted the prisoners as they were landing as well. How important was the fact that Turkey mediated this? This has made the headlines that Turkey were very involved in this.
Turkey has been trying to play a major role, and to be fair, they were quite successful in sort of handling these sort of international conflicts, or rather local conflicts. You may recall Turkey played a role in the grain deal that was signed between Russia and Ukraine 2 years ago. Turkey also mediated the first, or rather hosted the first round of meetings between Russia and Ukraine in 2022. So Turkey is positioning itself to play the central role as an actor that can be trusted, that can play this sort of role as a mediator in various conflicts. And to be fair, despite being a NATO member, Turkey is structuring its approach to foreign policy in such a way where it can engage with Russia, with NATO countries, with Iran. So it's definitely has been long in the making, and they're well positioned to play this part.
I want to talk a little bit more about, obviously, what I'm seeing here maybe is a very Western slant. When you hear about the people that were returned to Russia, Vadim Krasikov, as you say, jailed for assassinating a former Chechen rebel commander. The other one, Roman Zeleznev, the son of a Russian lawmaker found guilty of U.S. federal court for perpetrating a cyber assault on American companies. Is this a fair exchange, as you say, or are the people that Russia are arresting and putting into jail, are they also guilty of some of these horrendous crimes?
Well, they're definitely accused of committing these crimes,
right.
But from what we know from the history, when somebody is convicted of spying in Russia, Russia tends to make a big deal out of it. There was an interesting case of a British spy who was convicted around 2010. And the whole process has been illustrated, released, the pictures, the videos. So when they have evidence, it is usually publicized because it's a big win for state service, security service. In this case, however, quite a few of these people were detained under very interesting circumstances. For instance, the Radio Freedom journalist Alsu Karmasheva came to visit her mother, and she was detained and sent to prison for her activity. She was Russian, but she lived in Czech Republic. Ivan Gershkovich, quite a notorious case. I mean, he's the first U.S. journalist who has been arrested for espionage charges since the end of the Cold War. Ivan was arrested for spying. However, it's highly unlikely because the way the Russian system works, a foreign journalist, cannot really leave Moscow just by himself to do work. He needs to get permission from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and he needs to apply for it. So from what we know, Gershkovich followed the steps. He did what he needed to do, and then he was still arrested. It seems that Putin has always had a soft spot for members of the Secret Service of the Russian Federation, and he made a point to reward loyalty and punish treason. So for Russia, it was very important to get all these people accused of spying or espionage, it seems, at any cost necessary.
Dennis Reaver, thank you very much. Security researcher at the Institute for Security Studies brings us to exactly 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, the Correctional Services Department has warned prison warders found to be assisting inmates to get contraband items that they will be fired. This after prison officials confiscated cell phones, money as well as drugs including dagga and heroin in a raid at Durban's Westville prison last night. Lessons will resume on Monday at the Moordelach Combined School in Wonderfontein in Mpumalanga following a crash in which 6 learners were killed on Wednesday. 19 learners are still in hospital. And the US President Joe Biden has held the largest prisoner swap between the West and Russia since the end of the Cold War as a feat of diplomacy. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And a heavy backlog coming into Joburg from the Sprayview and Phosphorus area this morning. There's a crash just before the Heidelberg Road junction on the N3 North. That's already pushing a very heavy queue back towards Leondale. If you're driving up from Phosphorus or Heidelberg, good options. You come off at Barry Marais or you come off at Leondale and just use Leondale Road and just use the R103. You can join at the Heidelberg Road on-ramp if you like. The crash is just before you get to Heidelberg Road. So take the alternative route to keep yourself moving and bypass a major delay. Also, talking of major delays, a stationary truck on Durban's N2 South before Spaghetti Junction. Now that's in the roadwork, so you're down an extra lane. The traffic pushing back heavily towards Queen Nundy Drive. That's southbound, Durban bound. On the northbound track, which is always the busiest this time of morning, there's also a breakdown before Spaghetti Junction. So coming up from the M7, you're under increasing pressure on the northbound side as well. Cape Town looking generally fairly normal. A lot of traffic on Stellenbosch Arterial though. Blackheath through to the R300, then through Delft towards very busy Symphony Way Junction. And we're just hearing about some protesting on the Motherwell Road in the Rebecca area, so just be aware of possible diversions around that. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Morning, Zai. I know you want to talk medals and things, but I just have to raise this. Andy Murray's just tweeted, a little while ago, Andy Murray tweeted.
Yeah.
You know, he's retiring, right?
Yes.
His tweet is, I never really liked tennis anyway.
What do they say? Love means nothing in tennis.
It's the most Andy Murray thing to say. I never really liked tennis anyway.
Okay, Andy, it's all right.
Let's talk about bigger things.
Hey, listen, Tatiana Smith. Wow, what an hour swimming sensation, announcing her retirement after claiming that historic silver medal in the 200-meter breaststroke at the Paris Olympics last night. Now, this marks the end of a remarkable career, making Smith South Africa's most decorated Olympian with 4 medals, including 2 gold and 2 silver. The 27-year-old, who got married last year, is excited to focus on her personal life. Meanwhile, 20-year-old Peter Coetzee set a new African record in the men's 200-meter backstroke, finishing in 7th place. Though disappointed to miss the podium, Coetzee celebrated the 15-year-old record with a time of 1 minute 55.6 seconds. On to golf at the Olympics. Eric van Rooyen leading the charge for South Africa, finishing the first round tied for 6th at 4 under par. Meanwhile, Japan's Hideki Matsuyama sits atop the leaderboard with an 8 under par performance. South Africa's Christian Bezuidenhout also showing promise, ending the round at 1 under par, tied for 29th. But let's hear from the South African leading the charge, Eric van Rooyen.
No, I wouldn't necessarily say it was due to an aggressive approach. I think I just hit the ball really, really well, and I putted really well. Obviously, there's 1 or 2 blunders in there, but, you know, golf's a difficult game, and that's probably inevitable. So really happy with round 1 and looking forward to round 2.
Some tennis now. Novak Djokovic overcame a worrying knee injury scare and a huge second-set deficit to reach his 4th Olympic Games semi-final. The Serb top seed defeated Stefano Tsitsipas 6-3, 7-6, but only after aggravating the right knee injury that required surgery in June. Djokovic needed on-court treatment after slipping on the baseline of Court Philippe Chatrier. And gymnastics news, Simone Biles recapturing the Olympic all-round crown yesterday, seeing off Brazil's Rebecca Andrade for her 6th Olympic gold and 2nd in Paris. Now, Biles, who famously withdrew from multiple events at the Tokyo Games 3 years ago with the disorientating twisties, followed up her team gold with the United States earlier this week. The 27-year-old Biles became the first gymnast to reclaim the individual title, which she won in the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Games. Here's Biles.
3 years ago, I never thought I'd step foot on a gymnastics floor again just because of everything that had happened. But with the help of Cecile and Laurent, I got back in the gym and worked really hard mentally and physically. Even this morning at 7 a.m., I saw my therapist, and there's a time change. So she is so amazing for allowing me to do that these couple of days here in Paris. So just making sure I'm mentally well. I think you see that out on the competition floor.
And finally, controversy struck Paris Olympics as the Algerian boxer Iman Khalif, who failed a gender eligibility test last year, defeated Italy's Angela Carini in just 46 seconds. The one-sided bout, which saw Carini injured and unable to continue, has reignited debates on gender inclusion in sports. Now, despite the controversy, Khalif advances to the quarterfinals looking for a medal. That's how we wrap up sport. We'll bring you more at a top of the hour. I'm Zaikan.
We're going to talk about that 8:45.
Ooh,
today.
Explosive.
Yeah, we're going to get Colin Nathan in. And Colin Nathan doesn't hold back. I thought, let's get Colin in. Let's see what he has to say about this. So if you want to hang around,
it's going to be heated.
This would be a fun one to listen to. Zaikan, thank you very much. More sport coming up in an hour.
The Business Update on SAfm.
And Taoleng Lechela joins us. And Taoleng, good morning. I feel as if these things you're giving me, we're all holding our breath for an interest rate cut. What is England doing?
We really are, and morning to you, John. I guess what we're seeing here is the international cutting rate kind of gaining traction, and we're just hoping that sentiment filters down to the SARB. Now, the Bank of England, the last central bank to make a monetary policy decision this week, and it's really closing the week off on a high note as policymakers lowered rates for the first time in 4 years. Andrew Bailey and his team of policymakers cut rates by 25 basis points to 5%. This comes as lower inflation paved the way for the fall in rates, but the bank remains cautious, saying the mission to tame inflation is not accomplished as yet. Now, when looking at consumer prices in the UK, you'll notice that it's one of the few countries that has actually managed to tame inflation at its 2% target. The move was closely contested, with 5 members in favor of a cut and 4 voting for a hold. This has spooked investors a bit, with some saying policymakers might take a wait-and-see approach and not lower borrowing costs in its next meeting. Now, the move also comes weeks after the national election in the UK, giving citizens some relief as the cost of living bites.
And I didn't even know Snap was a thing. There's a company called Snap. Is this the Snapchat people?
Yes,
oh,
it's actually the parent company for Snapchat.
All
and to be fair, I don't blame you. I was quite surprised that it's still around. And I guess it's probably because I don't know anyone that actually still uses the app. And I think the numbers somewhat reflect that, especially when you put it up against the likes of TikTok or like a Meta that has apps like Instagram and Facebook. Now, when we're zooming in on those numbers, monthly active users rose to 850 million from 800 million in February. 11 million of those users were on its subscription service, Snapchat Plus. Now, Snap introduced the Snapchat Plus subscription service in 2022 as a way to expand its business beyond online advertising, and said earlier this year that the service reached an annualized revenue run rate of $250 million last year. This is one of the factors boosting overall sales, which grew 16%. I guess the most worrying thing here is that the outlook for the third quarter isn't really upbeat. Snap revised its revenue guidance for the third quarter lower, alarming traders, which then saw its share price tank close to 20% at one point yesterday. It then recouped some of those losses, closing 4% lower in yesterday's trade.
And what's happening on the markets today?
There's a sell-off taking place, John. We are seeing some profit-taking despite the positive news in the markets. This saw U.S. stocks tumbling yesterday, with all indices closing in the red. Over in Asia, it's a sea of red as well. Those markets following the broadly negative cues from global markets overnight, amid concerns about the outlook for global economic growth after some disappointing economic data from the U.S., Europe, and China that offset optimism about a near-term interest rate cut by the Fed. The same sort of mood playing out at home as well, with the JSE also plunging after a record performance earlier this week. The All Share losing over 1% in yesterday's trade. In your currency action, the local unit starting the day weaker. At some point yesterday, the rand was trading around 18.16, and now it's sitting at 18.27 to the dollar.
Taoleng Lechela, thank you very much. More than Taoleng again in an hour's time.
Look out for great savings on dental health products at Dis-Chem. Get 2+1 cheapest free when you buy from the same brand offer. Find the widest range of brands you love, such as Dental Mate, Sensodyne, Colgate, and more. Smile brighter with 2+1 cheapest free on the widest range of manual toothbrushes, toothpaste, and mouthwashes. Valid until 11 August at Dis-Chem pharmacies. Better health starts here.
The Serengeti, located on the northern part of Tanzania, bordering Kenya on the north and Ngorongoro in the south. Home to the African Big Five and millions of zebras, birds and other predators. Serengeti 2 returns to the unspoiled corner of the Serengeti for more animal drama. There's humor, heartbreak, and nail-biting tension as new characters move in and familiar faces continue their stories. Channel your inner adventurer with Serengeti 2, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
Get affordable car insurance and do more with the money you could save every month. 69-year-old Vivian can afford to treat herself more now that she pays an awesome car insurance premium of only 749 Rand per month to insure her grey 2024 Suzuki Jimny 85-door. Do you want more? SMS out to 30754 to get a quote. That's out to 30754 now. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAfm.
Newly appointed Minister of Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Deon George, has ruled in favour of the controversial Turkish power ships proposal for Richards Bay Harbour. It comes despite strong indications that the electricity minister and the entire car power ship plan was dead in the water. Let's go back a little bit. Let's find out more about what is happening here. First of all, we're going to talk to an environmentalist in a moment. Let's talk to a power and energy expert. Vali Padiachi is a former senior executive of City Power Johannesburg, former executive manager of Telkom. Vali, good morning to you. Thanks very much. Do we still need the car power ship?
Good morning, George. John, to you and your listeners, and thank you for having me back. John, let me answer that in the following way. You know, when we were in a serious load shedding scenario the last 2 or 3 years, rampant load shedding, etc., I made the comment that the car power ship opportunity would have been good to get on, but not for the 20 years that they had applied for a 3 to 5 years period, because we needed tons of electrons, and of course the Eskom grid was not stable. Now, we could argue that we are performing better. I mean, so kudos to the Eskom team that we're not load shedding. It's over 4 months, I think it is. So we could argue that do we still need the car power ships project, which is your question. So, albeit we are kind of back to a certain level of normality, but we're still not outside the electricity crisis, and we still need tons of electrons, and it's taking a bit longer to get all these new projects off the grid. So I would say, sort of touch and go, the car power ship opportunity, and I'm leaving the politics all aside because a lot of politics been attributed to this project, but it could still make sense, but not for, again, I'd say it's probably, now I would say probably for a 3-year period, as long as they address all the environmental conditions, and the pricing is right. We are so cash-strapped and the fiscal so constrained, it's got to come at the right pricing. So technically and as a professional, the car power ship opportunity or project could do well for the country and mitigate some inherent risk that we still have on the generation side for maximum 3 years, John.
Yeah, George saying, or the minister saying, load shedding is still very much part of South Africa's daily existence, and this deal is still needed and desirable. Are we that close? As an energy expert, are we that close to load shedding where, I don't know, if 1% changes, suddenly we're going to go back to load shedding stage 3 and 4?
I'm glad you asked that question because we are not out of the woods. It's right. Also from Eskom's comments and from Minister Makopa's comments. But I don't believe they're sitting at a knife edge. I think we may get back to load shedding, stages 1 and 2, if we have a serious breakdown. But I don't believe we're in that situation. But I think Minister George, it's ironical. I mean, he comes from a party that opposed the car powership project vehemently. But I think it reflects the difference where the minister is keeping the politics out to his mandate. He's exercising his mandate to make that decision. But I don't believe we'll get back to the levels of load shedding that we've had previously. Touch wood on that. But obviously we have a problem with the localized load reduction.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about what car powership does, because I think this is important. You mentioned initially it was this 20-year plan to rent. So a ship comes in, it plugs into the grid, and it supplies extra electricity. It's a quick solution, but very expensive. Are there alternatives to this that's less environmental impact?
Let me answer the second part. There are alternatives. I mean, we are currently using open cycle gas turbines. So the technology, we're kind of using a similar technology. So we still have that opportunity for continuing the use of open cycle gas turbines, and it is coming at a cost. But if the car powership opportunity is cheaper than what we're using with open cycle gas turbine, which I don't believe it is, because the diesel prices are skyrocketing and the gas prices globally are going through the roof. So I don't believe there's an alternative or acceptable alternative. I think the car powership opportunity, price-wise, they've actually priced themselves out of this opportunity, John.
Okay, and there's talk about one ship out in Richards Bay. At one point, there were 3 ships that were going to be in Saldanha and Kucha as well. If you say it's still on the table, is one enough? And is that the future?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm not sure the exact details of that. But firstly, let me say that there's still significant environmental issues for the ships to even dock at any of our ports. So that has to be seriously addressed. But I think from what they applied for and what we're looking at now with load shedding being arrested, etc., we may not. I would say maybe just as a thumb truck, we may not need more than one ship. But I just want to say the pricing has to be right. The environmental conditions have to be done, and our economy cannot be further crippled by that intervention, John.
We're going to talk to environmental rights in a minute. Just quickly, I know you've avoided the political side, but the minister, in an article, says that it appears to have been legally obligated to make a ruling on this appeal, even if his decision is rendered academic by all these hurdles, as you mentioned, that face car powership. So is this just, what's the opposite of a rubber stamp? It's just something he had to do to at least get something in paper, but in the end, it's not really going to happen.
I don't know what's going through his mind, but of course, I think the minister would have given this careful thought. He would have been advised by his legal advisors and other advisors. So his decision would have been very carefully worked out one. But bear in mind that he must not also negate his bona fides. He may be also taking a decision by applying his own mind based on the input that he's got. So it could be a combination of all of this. But politically, I don't know what's in his mind. I mean, as I say, he comes from a party that vehemently opposed this. But I guess now within the GNU, he has to abide by broadly on what the GNO is going forward with. And maybe that also contributed to his decision-making. John.
Vali Padiachi, thank you very much. Power and energy expert, a former senior executive of City Power Joburg, also former executive manager of Eskom. We're going to get the views of climate activists in a moment, or environmental activists. Apparently, the minister rejected all 15 grounds of appeal by the Centre for Environmental Rights on behalf of groundwork in the South Durban Community Environmental Alliance. We'll find out that side of the story in a sec.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, it's happening quickly. Incidents coming in thick and fast this morning. Crash on Joburg N3 North before Heidelberg. Right, if you're in from Heidelberg, Phosphorus, or coming out of Spruitview, some very heavy traffic on the N3. Queuing up into that particular scene. Also, a breakdown in amongst the roadworks on the R21 near the Benoni exit. That's heavy. If you're on your way to the airport, having left Pretoria, you've got the first queue at Clayville, and then you've got this really big queue coming from Bupsfontein Road down through towards Pomona. So you've got a couple of lanes closed for roadworks, broken down in another lane. It looks like you're probably just squeezing into one lane on your way to the airport, so make sure you've got plenty of time to get through that for those early morning flights. Also, a collision on the other side of town, the N1 going north just before Malabongwe. So coming through from Bayers Nordia, it's starting to get busy as well. Durban, two problems both sides of Spaghetti Junction, having a major impact on traffic flow. Stationary truck in the construction before Spaghetti Junction driving south. That queue is now back to Queen Nandi Drive and looking particularly heavy. If you're coming in from the airport to Durban, come off at Umhlanga, come off at the Kumashu Chris Hani exit, go through Durban North, come off at Queen Nandi. You've got plenty of options to avoid that. If you need to get through to Pietermaritzburg or Pinetown, come off at Mgeta Road and take the M19. You'll avoid at least the queue further down in towards Spaghetti Junction. And on the northbound side, a broken down vehicle at 4 level, and that's pushing heavy traffic back as far as the cement factory side. Cape Town looks like something's going on the N2 inbound, passing Khayelitsha, either a breakdown or a crash before the R300. That traffic's pushing back beyond Spine Road. That's heavy. Motorists complaining of unusually heavy backlogs through Khayelitsha this morning. And a crash on Symphony Way coming in and out of Delft, just south of the Stellenbosch arterial road. So both ways on Symphony Road, under a bit of pressure into that scene. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's the first elimination challenge, and to stay in the competition, the bottom 6 contestants must channel their inner Italian by baking a delicious handmade pizza using leftovers from the fridge. Who will survive to bake another day? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior. Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
Your geyser would have hot water, but some people overloaded the transformer with their illegal connections. You're late again, and the robots don't work. Some people vandalized it for copper. The whole community doesn't have electricity because some people have been bridging meters for a small fee, and now the transformer has exploded due to overloading. Don't allow illegal connections by criminals to inconvenience you and your community. Report criminals to ESCOM on 0800 11 2722 or the SAPS. Save your transformer. Save lives.
Mzansi Africa's beautiful game is back. Reigning champions Ezimnyama Ngani want to do it again, but they must conquer their battle against Kevin Hunt and his troops. However, Matsatsansa Pitori have a massive plan to march to the semi-final. This is the MTN 8 quarter-final. Wafa Wafa. Orlando Pirates versus SuperSport United. This Saturday, 3 August at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. Hashtag We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to John Gerika on SAfm.
7 minutes to 7. Coming up in the next hour, we're going to find out if the police are maybe a little trigger happy in KwaZulu-Natal, and Helen Ziller and Fikile Mbulula having a media argument. We'll find out what's going on in the Government of National Unity. But now let's continue our talk about the car powership deal. The Minister of Fisheries, Forestry, Fisheries and the Environment, Dion George, has dismissed the appeal by 2 environmental justice groups against that decision to grant authorization for car powership to come into South Africa. Why do we need it, and what do the environmentalists have to say? Brendan Abdenor is an acting head of the Pollution and Climate Change Program, the Centre for Environmental Rights. Brendan, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Why would the minister disagree or dismiss your appeals?
Morning, John, and good morning to the listeners. Well, the minister, firstly, we're still studying this decision in depth because it's quite complex and very lengthy. But basically, the minister dismissed 15 grounds of appeal. That's all of them. And certainly at an initial reading of the decision, a lot of those dismissals are not well reasoned. And it seems that he's really just taken what car powerships has said and effectively looks like a rubber stamping exercise, albeit a complex one.
All right, explain the thinking. Why do you think this is happening?
Well, just looking, for example, at the climate change impact assessments, what our clients have alleged is that that was done inadequately. For example, it didn't really take account of the impacts of climate change on the project. Now, we know that Richards Bay is in an area that is likely to see increasing cyclonic activity. For example, so you can imagine a floating gas power ship with refueling ships and infrastructure. In the case of extreme weather or storm surges or something like that, the results could be potentially catastrophic. And yet that is dealt with in one line in the climate change impact assessment that says as long as port infrastructure is maintained, there won't be a problem. And the minister agreed with something like that. And that's absolutely inadequate assessment of that risk and how to mitigate it.
You have 180 days now to give submissions on this decision. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah. There would be 180 days in which to bring a review application to court.
Are you confident in your review application?
Well, that decision still needs to be taken. We need to consult with clients once we've understood the decision further. But it certainly appears from the face of it that many aspects of this decision are reviewable.
I want to talk about these green credits. Part of the agreement proposes that Car Powership purchase a game reserve to mitigate the residual negative environmental impacts on the Richards Bay marine environment. It sounds fantastic, but that reserve is there anyway. You're not adding anything. So explain what these green credits are.
Well, the idea is that in the case where biodiversity is going to be damaged or displaced, there is a mechanism called biodiversity offsets, where you then create an alternative somewhere else. And the ideal is that it's like for like. So if you're damaging a certain type of ecosystem, that something equivalent gets protected and sort of regenerated. So firstly, looking at a terrestrial game farm that's inland, this like for like is not happening. So, that is certainly one of the aspects which we are incredibly unhappy with, because it's not really doing what the legislation intended. Right. What Car Powership claims is that it will have a sort of overall positive impact on biodiversity, and that should filter through to the marine biodiversity environment. But scientifically, it's really hard to see how that's going to happen.
Okay, I asked this of my previous guest, Vali Padiyachi. Is there an alternative? If we are struggling for electricity and we're on the border of load shedding, what do the environmentalists, you guys, suggest we do?
Well, there are different scales and different levels. I mean, on the sort of midterm, the idea is to really push for the construction of renewables, which are the quickest way of bringing clean and affordable electricity online. But we've seen that even with the measures that Eskom is taking with its existing fleet, as well as quite a phenomenal growth in solar electricity, for example, over the past 1 and 2 years, already we've taken the heat off with load shedding quite substantially. So to lock ourselves into this 20-year very expensive form of electricity that also has these other harms such as climate change, etc., really doesn't seem strategically sound. So there are other ways of going about it. Improved energy efficiency measures and demand-side management also provide a lot of opportunity to take pressure off the grid. And as I say, we're seeing that happening. We realize load shedding is not gone, but we also can see that strides have been made.
Okay, what is the way forward now for you? You're going to study this judgment and then give your decisions?
Study it, consult with clients, and then make a call, and also try and understand the broader landscape. We have seen Minister Ramokgopa saying that Car Powerships is off the table. So we are aware that, for example, the Biodiversity Law Centre is writing to him to actually inquire. So what we're seeing here is different streams. I mean, there's the energy planning on the one side. This is the environmental authorization side of things. So at this point in time, there seems to be a dissonance between them. But we'll see over the coming weeks and months whether those dovetail.
Brandon Abdenor, thank you very much. Acting Head of the Pollution and Climate Change Program at the Centre for Environmental Rights. Thank you very much for your views. What do you make of that? Give us a call, 086 000 2032. And as always, voice notes are open, 0614 104 107. We'll play some of those in the next hour. So that number again, 0614 104 107. It's exactly 7 o'clock. Time for the news.
In our top stories, a stern warning to prison warders assisting inmates and taxi association march to the Tshwane House. Good morning. The Correctional Services Department has warned prison warders found to be assisting inmates to get contraband items that they will be fired. This after prison officials confiscated cell phones, money as well as drugs including dagga and heroin in a raid at Durban's Westville prison last night. This comes after similar raids at the Goodhood prison in Cape Town and the Johannesburg prison in the past 2 weeks. The Correctional Services National Commissioner, Mahoti Tobagale.
Some of the contrabands are actually utilized to establish the facts, including the fact that we also interview the offenders. When I'm saying some of the contrabands, I basically mean cell phones. We get to open them. We are able to see the conversations or listening to the conversations, and that points us to those that might have assisted. So after the investigation, we then take appropriate steps.
Lessons will resume on Monday at the Morelig Combined School in Wonderfontein in Mpumalanga, following a crash in which 6 learners were killed on Wednesday. 19 learners are still in hospital. The crash involved a scholar bus and a train. The learners who were in the scholar transport were heading home to Mafube village outside Middelburg when the crash happened. Learners at the school are receiving counselling. A learner had this to say about scholar transport.
Yeah, I'm using the bus. Always I'm using it, but then yesterday I decided not to use it because the bus is too slow, was going slow and doesn't have a power anymore. He was going with one key, only one key, and the time is running up and up. We want to ride home to the home, but then yesterday I decided to go early.
Taxi operators from the Mainland Taxi Association will march to Tshwane House in the Pretoria CBD this morning. They're demanding that the city of Tshwane should honour the agreement regarding compensation for the taxi operators that the Arieng bus rapid transit system has affected. The marchers will gather on Kgosi Mampuru and Madiba streets before marching to Tshwane House. A member of the association known as Mr. Koko says they want to meet with the city manager.
We had a memorandum of agreement with the city that they will pay us as they will be using our route, the eastern suburbs. They wanted to buy us out from that route. So the agreement saying by buying a member or an operator out of the route, there should be a compensation which the member should have to get. There were several promissory letters that were made that actually we have to be out of operation from the city to Hatfield and from Hatfield to Mainline. So as members, we took initiative that we must approach the city manager to actually deliver or voice out our grievances.
Gauteng Transport MEC Kiribone Diale Tlabela says despite her department's budget cut, it will continue to make projects such as infrastructure development its priority. She tabled her department's 9.4 billion rand budget vote for the 2024-2025 financial year in the provincial legislature in Johannesburg yesterday. 2.7 billion rand will go towards upgrading roads and 3 billion rand towards transport operations. Diale Tlabela says the Gautrain Management Agency has been allocated 2.2 billion rand.
This is a budget to help us design, construct and maintain the roads in Gauteng as part of our road infrastructure project, as well as doing transport regulation and transport operations. Out of the 9.4 billion, there is allocated to us, and 96% of the budget goes to service delivery. It's short. We had a budget cut. We're hoping that National will transfer the grants as per our agreements, but still to not be able to assist us in all the programs and projects that we are wanting to achieve. There's generally financial constraints throughout the country.
And finally, US President Joe Biden has held the largest prisoner swap between the West and Russia since the end of the Cold War. 26 people were exchanged in Ankara in a deal involving 7 countries following Turkey's mediation. Both NATO and the European Union have welcomed the release. They've also praised the multinational cooperation that led to it. The BBC's Sarah Rainsford reports.
Germany has played a key role in this giant prisoner swap. In total, 12 people were flown into Cologne, a mixture of Russian dissidents and German nationals released from jail. Ilya Yashin was serving 8.5 years for condemning Russia's war on Ukraine. Sasha Skochilenko was doing 7 for leaving anti-war stickers in a supermarket. Among the Germans are a man given a death sentence in Belarus and a teenager found guilty of treason in Russia. In return, the government here has handed over a convicted Russian assassin who Vladimir Putin had hailed as a patriot.
Recapping the top story, the Correctional Services Department has warned prison warders found to be assisting inmates to get contraband items that they will be fired. This after prison officials confiscated cell phones, money as well as drugs including dagga and heroin in a raid at Durban's Westville prison last night. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Breakdown on Joburg's R21 south at the Benoni exit. It's in amongst the roadworks. So you've got 2 lanes closed for the works, another lane closed for this breakdown. If you're on your way to the airport, it's a heavy queue from Tembisa side this morning. Coming in from Spruitview, traffic remains heavy up to Heidelberg Road after an earlier crash. Collision on the M1 North before Malabongwe, holding traffic from Bayers Nordia Drive. On your way from Randburg through the 4 ways being held up. Durban's N2 is still a route worth avoiding this morning. You've got breakdowns southbound near Clare Road Bridge, that's before Spaghetti Junction. Northbound, you've got a broken down vehicle before Spaghetti Junction as well. So, give you an idea, the N2 south queues heavily from Queen Nandi Drive, the N2 north from as far back as the cement factory and working back towards Chatsworth. So, if you can avoid the N2, both directions, that'd be a good call. Today, Cape Town, a collision on Symphony Way at Delft just south of Stellenbosch Arterial Road causing some delays, and the N7 North Goodwood through to Bosmansdam starting to really backlog up towards that busy Summer Greens, Montague Gardens exit. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm Sports headlines, we have a celebration today as Tatiana Smith, well, she is the most decorated Olympian. She won the silver medal last night, also ending her career, and will also pay homage to Peter Coetzee in the pool. He finished 7th, but he did break a 15-year-old African record. All this and more at around 7:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
8 minutes past 7, you're with SAfm Breakfast. I'm John Gericke. Good morning to you. It's an interesting hour we got ahead. Coming up in a minute, we're going to unpack the sharp rise of people who were shot dead by KwaZulu-Natal police. Is it a cause for concern? You remember earlier this week we spoke to the police and they explained the thinking behind that. And that, what was the police spokesperson in KwaZulu-Natal saying that no policeman wants to kill anybody. They don't want to draw their weapon and get involved in a firefight. But Peter Vos says that this might be a cause for concern, and we'll find out why. Then the Democratic Alliance, Helen Zille, has made remarks that the DA and the ANC entered into a coalition from the beginning. There's no such thing as a GNU. ANC Secretary General Fikile Mbalula saying that Zille seeks to sow discord in the GNU and the DA is free to pull out if they want to. Let's find out what's going on. We'll talk to a political analyst. We'll take some of your views as well. As always, voice notes are open. 0614 104 107. We'll play some of those and you can give us a call as well. 086 000 2032. Let's talk. It's 9 minutes past 7.
Winners, finalists, fan favorites, and viral sensations from previous seasons of America's Got Talent return to the stage to compete for the All-Star title. Join Heidi Klum, Howie Mandel, and Simon Cowell as they decide who is the best of the best. The creme de la creme, the top dog, is in Tamatota. It's a festival of talent on America's Got Talent All-Stars. Saturdays at 6:30 p.m. on S3. Channel your best entertainment with America's Got Talent All-Stars. Only on S3. Open up.
Here he comes. Hello, guys. You're so dramatic. Hey, bro, it's not me. It's the extra styling kit. The leather seats with the red finish. It's the tow bar, all coming standard with my red Isuzu badge. Wow, now that is extra.
Why be standard when you can get the all-new Isuzu D-Max X-Rider from just 8,742 Rand. Prime less 3.5%, 0% deposit, 40% balloon, and 72 months to pay. Get yours today. Finance is subject to approval. Isuzu Finance, a product of Westbank, a division of First Rand Bank Limited, an authorized financial services and registered credit provider.
Positivity draws the attention of miraculous outcomes. Henry Skuman clinched bronze in the men's triathlon. His chances of getting his hands on a medal seemed slim at the start of the Olympic Games Rio 2016. A serious chest infection almost diminished his dreams of partaking. Luckily, he fought hard to get fit alongside a team of top medical specialists and was medically cleared just a day before his race. The 24-year-old engraved his name in the top books of bravery beyond boundaries. Henry Schoeman, the first South African to win a medal in an Olympic triathlon. Magical moments of the Olympics. Brought to you by SABC Sport, proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024.
Stay on top of all meaningful, top trending stories right here on SAfm. Leading the conversation.
Let's delve a little deeper into the number of people shot dead by KwaZulu-Natal police, and is it a cause for serious concern? Professor Peter Vos, constitutional law expert and the Claude Leon Foundation chair in constitutional governance at UCT, feels that it might be. He joins us now. Professor, thanks for joining us. Good morning. Surely police can fight back. If they're being attacked with bullets, can they fight back with bullets?
Yes, like anybody else, they have a right to self-defense. In terms of the Criminal Procedure Act, also they have a right to use reasonable force in some cases to effect arrest. But we don't actually know whether this was the case in all the situations where many suspects have been killed over the past while. We have the police who say that they killed these suspects after the suspects shot at them first. But we do know that in many other cases when the police make such claims and it is challenged, they are sued in court. The court finds that these claims were fabricated or not entirely accurate. So that is why I think it's important not just to assume that the police acted correctly here. They might have, in some cases at least, but we actually don't know. And I'm a little bit worried that people seem to cheer on the police, not knowing whether they have actually done something that is, at the very least, not lawful.
We'll talk about the cheering in a minute. These things happen very quickly, Prof. You know, it's if there is an incident, guns or bullets fly, people die, and police have been injured and killed as well. Police are under extreme pressure, and their lives are in danger every single day. Is this just a reaction to that?
Well, once again, I don't know. Of course, you're correct.
It's because we don't know.
As I wrote in my piece, the police has a very difficult, almost impossible job to do. It's dangerous. They obviously they will be, police might in the instant make a wrong decision and imperfectly in good faith, and that should be fine. It is just a bit odd that in one province there has been so many of these shootings where not one person is shot, but 5, 6, 7 people are shot. All the suspects that were supposedly going to be arrested were killed at the same time. It raises questions. It should raise questions. And I know people don't want to hear this because they want to believe the police and they want to think that the police are doing a good job, but we don't really know. Are the police maybe in cahoots with one of the gangs and helping them to shoot and kill rivals? None of these things can be completely disregarded or can just be dismissed.
So part of the issue is that we don't know, and IPID are slow in these investigations, understandably so. They want to make sure that everything's above board. But that's the issue, is until we know, we can't make a proper call.
Yes, I want to add to that, though, and that is that one must also, there's also a matter of principle here, and that is that the police have a duty to try and arrest people that they believe have committed crime without killing them, because the police is not the courts. They should not be the ones to mete out punishment. So to the extent that this could be read as the police taking the law into its own hands and saying, well, we are going to decide whether somebody is guilty, and if we then go out and kill them, so be it. We're not really going to try and arrest them if that's not necessary. The people are dangerous. That is not what they are supposed to do, and it is potentially dangerous also for the rest of us, because if they do it with specific people identified as violent criminals, tomorrow, the day after, they might identify you or me as a violent criminal and come and shoot us and our family. So, it is something that might be harmful not only to people who are quote unquote guilty, but also innocent people.
You say that a formal or informal policy encouraging members of the police to shoot first, ask questions later is fundamentally anti-black or anti-poor. Why do you say that?
You know, the people who are being killed in these cases, we don't know much about them, but they seem to be, they are not normally the kingpins. They are the young black men who are doing the work for the kingpins, and it is possible. My argument would be that it is possible for people to turn a blind eye and for the police not to have to account for this too seriously, because the lives of such young black men are not valued in the same way that wealthy white person's life would be valued. It is something that society unfortunately seems to accept, that some lives are worth more than other lives in the public discourse.
Let's talk about the public now. The public, and I can guarantee you there's a tweet or a WhatsApp that's come through now. So the police are doing a great job. They're getting rid of the criminals. If you want to do the crime, you got to do the time. I guess there is no time here, though. That's your point.
Yes. Well, so if you do the crime, then you must do the time. But do we know that the people did the crime? There has not been any court case. There's not been somebody has not been convicted of anything, and so we are giving the job of convicting people in a way to police officers are in a police service that we know is often untrained or undertrained. Some police officers are corrupt. There's more than 600 billion, I read this morning in the paper, of claims against the police at the moment for wrongful arrest, for assault, wrongful shooting, and so on. So the police do get it wrong many times. But just because in this case they say that it is really bad people that they have killed, the public seem to accept this, not thinking what is the consequences of this for other situations and for the rest of the public who's completely innocent but might fear the police and might be killed by the police completely innocently.
Yeah, what is it? In the last 4 years, from 2018, 2.2 billion rand in claims for wrongful arrest. That's 2% of the police budget. 108 billion rand for various alleged offences, including police brutality and wrongful arrest. So this costs money in the end, if once IPID has done their job, are found as being wrong.
So the IPID is busy investigating. We do know that in cases where they make a finding against the police, which is very difficult for them to do because they're not completely independent from the police, they rely to some extent on the police for the evidence and so on. They do their own investigation, but it is not easy for them to actually get to the bottom of this. When they do so, in the overwhelming majority of cases, the disciplinary action against the police officers implicated either takes a very long time to get off to start, or the officers get away with a slap on the wrist, because the police culture is protecting your own, it's a bit like lawyers, and so whether anything serious might happen to a police officer found to have done something really egregious, it is not a done foregone conclusion that it will happen.
Professor Pierre Vos, thank you very much. Constitutional law expert and the Claude Leon Foundation Chair in Constitution Governance at UCT, for your views. Vincent in Centurion, you want to talk about this?
Just comment. I think here in South Africa, there's a trend that is going where our comments are pro-criminals than they are against them. The comments that Prof is putting, yes, it's slightly academic to me. Because in real life, where we sit in, if you take South Africa before 1994, we had laws and stringent controls over the crime community, and the criminals wouldn't murder like they are murdering today. Compare it to Botswana today, still having the similar laws we had in Botswana and Zimbabwe. Zimbabwean police, they use knob kill. They don't even have guns. But you can't go and do as you wish in Zimbabwe. You don't do the same in Botswana now.
Right.
Here in South Africa, we're becoming academic about this thing. If these guys are carrying guns and when they shoot once, they must just be put down. That's it. That is the name of the game. It's supposed to be like this. If we should meet in the Human Rights Commission, let's meet there. Because our rights for those that are following the law gets to be protected by who? Because these criminals, they know in South Africa you just shoot. So we don't even have trust to our own police because we're scared even if they show up, they will do nothing. They are scared themselves. These criminals go to an extent of going into the police station and shoot.
Vincent,
this is wrong. Yep. So we mustn't be academic about it. We must start becoming harder so that the criminals know. No gun, no shooting.
Vincent.
Simply, if you're asked to come up with your hands up, come out with the hands up. Don't shoot.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Vincent. Yeah, strong point made, Vincent. Thank you very much. And quickly, Tumaleng's in my king. Same topic. Go ahead, Tumaleng.
Hi. How's it, John?
Lekker, go ahead quickly. We're running out of time.
Okay. I don't know how many times has the prof said I don't know in this interview. I'm not sure I don't know. Now, the people who knows are telling us that we go and try to arrest these people and they shoot at us. Now, what must the police do, John? Must they run away?
Are you a policeman, Tumaleng?
No, I'm not a policeman.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes. But I'm just saying, you call the prof to come here and give an account or his views on this, but he doesn't seem to know about what he's talking about, you know. I'm afraid nobody is coming to the radio and say, how can we protect the police against these people? Because so many police are dying and nobody's talking about it. We are not loud about it. And the spokesperson of the SAPS in KZN yesterday came to the radio, or a day before, and told us how many people they've arrested. And they are more than the people they killed. And all these people that are being killed, they're involved in CITs and serious crimes. And they go as a group there. And when they go and hide, they hide as a group. So when you approach them, obviously they have these high caliber weapons. And they will start shooting at the police to resist arrest. What must the police do? We don't know what we want in this country. I'm telling you, John. We really do not know. And nobody's saying anything about the death police are experiencing on a daily basis, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Tumaleng in my king, with his views as well, you can give us a call, 086 000 2032.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on #SAfm Breakfast.
25 minutes past 7, the Democratic Alliance Federal Chairperson Helen Zille made remarks that the DA and the ANC entered into a coalition from the beginning, and there's no GNU, prompting a response from the ANC Secretary General, Fikile Mbalula, saying that Zille seeks to sow discord in the GNU and the DA is free to pull out. Sandile Swana has been watching all of this shenanigans on the background. Sandile, good morning to you. What do you make of this debate? It seems like they're having a bit of a squabble in the media.
Oh, thank you so much, John, and good morning to the listeners of SAFM. What I think from my point of view is we need to be acknowledged is that Helen Zille is calling a spade, just the basic honesty of telling the truth. Now, when you tell the truth, it is not so much about that you are starting a fight, except if there are people who hate the truth. So Helen Zille is telling the truth. Now, a lot of us have been aware for some time that in the very early days, Helen Zille and people like Anne Bernstein and others, even the likes of Mavuso Msimang in the ANC, were saying that it would be better for the ANC of Ramaphosa to partner with the DA, even as the DA was going into the moonshot pack. So the idea of a grand coalition was the dominant idea before the 29 May elections, and let alone after the results. It was a dominant idea. It was there. Secondly, on the 28th of May, BLSA, Business Leadership South Africa, represented by Vusi Mavuso, issued a statement, a clear statement, that the coalition that is formed after the 29th of May election result must exclude the EFF and the MK party, which would mean then that the prospect of a government of national unity was not there. At the same time, the DA had identified the elements of MK and EFF as a coalition of doom and things like that, and identified the EFF as enemy number one. So you cannot have national unity when you've already redlined and excluded certain people. So it is a factual, absolute truth that there is no government of national unity. There is a government, and it's a government that has got good prospects of lasting as things stand, and there are reasons for that. But there is no government of national unity.
So let me understand this in John terms, because politics issue. Helen Zille is saying that the agreement that they currently have is because of the DA, and Fikile Mbalula is saying the government we have is because of the ANC. Is that the bottom line here?
Well, there are two issues. It's the concept itself, first of all. It's the concept. So Helen Zille admits that it was clear to them that they are going to form a grand coalition, and they actually formed a grand coalition.
Yes.
But for the sake of propaganda and making the bitter pill easier to swallow amongst the ANC members, Ramaphosa and the ANC ANC leaders, elites, invented the concept of a GNU to sugarcoat a grand coalition. So it was the concept, the wedding, actually it's not the concept, it's just the wedding. In this case, there is no GNU. Ramaphosa introduced a sugar coat called GNU. So, and they are leading that false concept. If they say they are leading anything, they are leading that false concept that does not exist in reality. But that's what the ANC says.
But there are other parties involved. EFF is, Freedom Front Plus is in there. The PA is in there. Good Party is in there as well.
Yes. So if you are looking at percentages, each one of those parties can be swallowed up by a number of them. A very large number of them can just be swallowed up by the percentage of the EFF or the percentage of the MK, things like that. So these are little, what do they call these little midgets, or these little small dogs. The two big dogs there is the DA and the ANC. That is the core of the thing. However, we already know that even as we have just demonstrated, we've seen a demonstration in Gauteng, that whether the DA supports the ANC in this whole thing or not, the government of the ANC, whatever you call it, even if it is called a GNU, whatever you call it after this, it will continue. Panyaza Lesotho has demonstrated that.
Sandile Swana is a political analyst. What do you make of that? Give us a call. 086 000 2032. Thank you, Sandile Swana. Sandile Swana, political analyst. We got sports and traffic coming up in a minute. Also business with Ntualeng. Looking forward to finding out what's happening in the markets today. After all of that, we're going to find out how we can withstand a financial setback. Most South Africans can't. We're living paycheck to paycheck. I think we've got time for calls and voice notes as well. All of that after 7:30 headlines.
Good morning. In the headlines, the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting is reflecting on the outcomes of the May 29th election, which saw the party dip below 50% for the first time in 3 decades. The 6-day meeting of the ANC's highest decision-making body started yesterday in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The Umkhonto weSizwe Party's Youth League says it's shocked that the Teachers Union SATU in Gauteng is not supporting young people who are protesting against the termination of teacher assistant contracts, and the Correctional Services Department has warned prison warders found to be assisting inmates to get contraband items that they will be fired. This after prison officials confiscated cell phones, money as well as drugs, including dagga and heroin, in a raid at Durban's Westville prison last night. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Power outage in northern parts of Pretoria. So routes like Lavender Road coming through Vanderboom, also Sefako-Makato, various areas. Paul Kruger, Steve Biko heading down towards Gazina, just some extra delays because lots of traffic lights around. A crash on the M1 South near Samran. That's a heavy queue coming through from Brockfontein interchange. And if you're on your way to the airport, you've got roadworks and a breakdown on the R21 around the Benoni exit. So that's heavy. The N3 running north, a breakdown before Galulis. That's a stationary truck heavy from Cement Factory, and a crash on the M1 North before Malabongwe. Drive means a delay coming through from 14th Avenue. Durban's N2 still worth avoiding. Breakdowns both sides, southbound at Spaghetti Junction. That's a queue from Queen Nundy Drive, which is heavy. The N2 North even worse. The breakdown before Spaghetti Junction, plus the roadworks after that. That's a queue from the Cement Factory territory. All sort of local routes are under quite a bit of pressure, as you can imagine as well. The M7 going into Pinetown, super heavy this morning from North Dean, North Park, all the way through to St John's Avenue Bridge. And a crash at Palmview, Jeji Champion R102 area. That's very heavy coming from the Verulam side down in towards Phoenix. Cape Town, the N7's busy today. Queuing up passing Langa to Epping, more queues Goodwood through to Bosmansdam Road. And the R300 is unusually slow from the Van Riebeek Road exit at Cales River all the way through to the N1 inbound connection. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai, good morning.
Good morning.
Tatiana Smith. That's the only the sports story today.
Oh, of course. We want to celebrate this incredible woman. Going out with a splash, John, ending her career as our most decorated Olympian. What a way to dive into retirement. Last night, she claimed a historic silver medal in the 200-meter breaststroke at the Paris Olympics. And I think the 27-year-old who got married last year is now excited to focus on her personal life.
The only goal for the final was to just stay calm, carry on with my stroke and just be confident with that, and the results will play out as it should. And yeah, it was an amazing battle. It's amazing to see the new people coming up. I've never raced Kate at an Olympic final, so I love competing, and I couldn't have asked for a better way to end my career in a very tough battle.
That was Kate Douglas just pipping Tatiana Smith there to the gold medal. Meanwhile, 20-year-old Peter Coetzee set a new African record in the men's 200-meter backstroke, finishing in 7th place. Though he didn't get a podium finish, Coetzee celebrated breaking a 15-year-old record with a time of 1 minute 55.6 seconds. In golf, Eric van Rooyen is leading the charge for Team South Africa in golf, finishing the first round tied for 6th at 4 under par, while Japan's Hideki Matsuyama sits atop the leaderboard with an 8 under par performance. Closer to home, TS Galaxy coach Siad Ramabij believes the club can unearth another crop of quality players, having lost some of the best to rival PSL sides. Now, following the sale of 7 players 2 seasons ago to Orlando Pirates, Kaizer Chiefs and Mamelodi Sundowns, as part of the Rockets' business model, Chairman Tim Sukazi transferred 3 more in July, And still on the Chiefs matter, Siad Ramovic responded to an attempt by Sukazi to auction him off to Amakosi before the decision to appoint Nazruddin Nabi.
I'm the head coach for this beautiful club, and I'm very happy to be here. But if you ask me how I think about the Chiefs, yes, this is no secret. I said it many times. It's one of the best, maybe the most beautiful club in our league. But also Orlando, it's great. Sundowns is a beautiful club. So many also beautiful clubs. Cape Town, and of course our club also. So happy to be where I am now.
And staying with soccer, Saudi Arabia has submitted plans to build 11 stadiums, including one set 350 meters above ground level as part of the country's bid to host the 2034 World Cup. The proposed stadium in Neom is an as-yet unbuilt city in the northwest of the country, will be accessible only via high-speed lifts and driverless vehicles. The arena, which is part of the country's The Line project to diversify the kingdom's economy away from oil, and is set to host a quarterfinal fixture. Saudi Arabia's bid is uncontested, and the country has had until October's deadline to submit their plans. And finally, this controversy, which we will be discussing, Algerian boxer Iman Khalif, who failed a gender eligibility test last year, defeated Italy's Angelina Carini in just 46 seconds. The one-sided bout, which saw Carini injured and unable to continue, has reignited debates on gender inclusion in sports. That's where we leave it for now. More top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAfm.
As Zai says, we're going to be talking about that at around 8:45. You can get involved in that, and you're hanging around for that, Zai. Excellent.
In the ring.
Ntauling Lachela gives us an update on what's happening in the business. Some good news from the factories, Ntauling.
That's right, John. Now, a gauge that monitors confidence in the manufacturing sector has edged up in July. The APSA Purchasing Manufacturing Index rose to 52.4 points from 45.7 in June. Now, this print is important because the index is back in positive territory above the 50-point mark. This also signals a strong start to the third quarter for the industry after a downbeat first half. Now, economists say sentiment has been boosted by renewed confidence in the GNU and consistent power supply. Zooming in on that print, the business activity sub-index saw a significant rebound in July, rising 14.5 points to 50.8. New sales orders in the meantime experienced a surge of 17.5 points to 55.4. These gains indicate that previously delayed orders are now being fulfilled, leading to increased activity. Additionally, export sales posted a turnaround in July, reversing a 4-month decline with a significant increase. Despite the positivity, though, the employment index dipped, suggesting that the increase in activity isn't translating into job creation.
And I see people moaning, big corporates moaning about high electric prices.
Now, we're sticking in the manufacturing space. I just spoke about how, uninterrupted power supply has benefited the sector, but it seems like that has come at a cost. Steel manufacturer ArcelorMittal South Africa calling out regulators over high electricity prices. AMSA says electricity tariffs increased 16%, cautioning against the double-digit jump. Company CEO Kobus Verster said that this was a major concern as energy costs were a substantial component of operating expenses. Now, AMSA uses about 1.6 million megawatt hours of electricity per year. 5 years ago, it paid 2 billion rand per year, but now it pays 3.2 billion rand. This reflects an increase of about 1.2 billion rand, even though AMSA uses 9% less electricity. Earlier this week, a Minister of Electricity, Jose Ramokgopa, said his ministry is working on this issue and they'll be reviewing the pricing system. Now, the news comes alongside AMSA's half-year results, where its loss widened due to operational challenges like disruptions at its Vanderbijl Park unit and the overall downbeat economic environment and steel markets.
And what's happening in the markets today?
Kicking things off in Asia, markets plunging deeper into the red, this largely being due to recession fears being reignited after US weekly jobless claims grew more than expected, rising inflation in Europe and downbeat business activity in China, which all weighed on sentiment. With that, China's Shanghai index is down 0.4%, while Japan's Nikkei taking the biggest knock, falling 5%. In Wall Street, futures also in the red ahead of the U.S. non-farm payrolls. Those numbers will give us insight on the country's labor market and how it has been faring. Back at home, markets following global sentiment falling into the red despite upbeat local manufacturing data. The all-share fell over 1% lower, fueled by the resources 10 complex down 2.3% in yesterday's trade. The rand, in the meantime, remaining steady. The U.S. non-farm payrolls likely to impact the dollar, which would then move the local unit. Ahead of that data, the rand is sitting at 18.26 to the greenback.
Tauleng Lachela, thank you very much. More business in an hour.
The world's best cooking show is finally here. MasterChef South Africa Season 5. You'll meet 20 talented home cooks from around Mzansi, noma uphumaphi, and no matter your favorite dish. See if the chefs can handle the heat in the kitchen in a race to be crowned MasterChef South Africa. Every Saturday, 7:30 p.m. only on S3 Channel 193. MasterChef South Africa, the world's best cooking show, proudly sponsored by Pick n Pay.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
SA Schools football comes alive on the 9th and 10th of August 2024 at Sarah Park, Wits University for the SA Schools National Championship from 9 a.m. daily. The best under-15 boys and girls representing their province's school teams will battle it out to try and be selected into the under-15 schools national team. Bring your family and camp chairs to support your provincial under-15 team. If you're not in Gauteng, catch the games on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4 and SABC Plus. For more details, visit safa.net. SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAfm.
Advocate Sipho Mantula, good morning to you. Happy all the good things to you on this Friday. What's happening in Nigeria?
Refreshing morning, John, and Jumbo Africa to the listeners. John, inspired by what they call the Kenyan protests in June, Nigeria has been having protests that went on yesterday with many young people being killed in Kaduna, 3 of them killed, but many young people going to the streets of Abuja, Lagos, protesting around the issues that are concerning them, cost of living, and also raising the issues of governance, corruption. If you recall, last week I spoke about this coming protest in Lagos and Abuja on the 1st of August. We saw it yesterday, and it seems that the Jagaban, President Bola Tinubu, is having challenges of how to handle this protest in Nigeria. As you said, that from East Africa to West Africa, we see this protest around the issues of cost of living and high inflation rate that is affecting the people of West Africa.
We were hoping for talks in Sudan. Doesn't look like it's going to go ahead, does it?
Yeah, what is worrying is that Abdel Fattah al-Burhan say he rules out to engage in Geneva in few days with the Rapid Support Forces. There was a drone strike actually when he went to the graduation this week, a military graduation ceremony, but that drone killed 5 people, and the army said he escaped unhurt. So the RSF, the Rapid Support Force, deny responsibility for this bombing, but it seems that the Sudanese government under Abdel Fattah al-Burhan say they are not going to engage on these talks because they have to be recognized as only the legitimate ruler of the people of Sudan. It seems that we are going to and fro, back and fro, John, because we really need a solution in the conflict in Sudan, Khartoum.
Big railway line. Tanzania is spending some money.
Tanzania's Samani President Samia Suluhu went on from Dar es Salaam to the administrative capital Dodoma with what they said 541 kilometers modern standard gauge railway running between the commercial capital Dar es Salaam, administrative Dodoma at 3.1 billion USD to boost their infrastructure. Again, I still say South Africa must learn from Tanzania on the railway line, how we could not have allowed COVID-19 to can damage our railway line. Tanzania is back on engaging on its railway line for transportation of goods between Burundi and the DRC. And that's how they've been supported by the Turkish. It was funded by the Turkish government, by the way, for them to build that 541 kilometers railway line.
Okay, so Turkish money being there. And then I see Zimbabwe positive that SADC can make changes.
That's quite true. It's a SADC month, actually, where Zimbabwe will be hosting the SADC summit on the 17th of August. But this week also, it was a SADC investment forum that was addressed by the Vice President, Constantino Chiwenga, raising the issues of the unlocking of Africa's potential on mineral resources, investment in the SADC region, raising that even the SADC has to connect with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area on issues of growth, issues of supporting the SADC countries. You'll understand that the SADC countries have to ratify the Africa Continental Free Trade. They have to engage with commerce and East Africa community, because the SADC as a regional bloc, John, has to also uplift the SADC citizens from poverty, from inequalities, from hunger. So there are many challenges. And as we know, Zimbabwe is hosting a SADC summit during this month.
And in your archives, you're celebrating already. You're having a weekend of parties?
That's quite true. I would have gone to Fela Kuti, that he passed on this day, on the 2nd of August 1997, but I opted to come back home in South Africa tomorrow, on the 3rd of August 1964. Lucky Philip Mtima Dube was born in Emelo, Mpumalanga. We know Lucky Dube. There's many songs he came out with. Rastas Never Die. Talk about the taxman. Lucky Dube was killed in 2007. When we have to recall in our 30 years of our archives, Lucky Dube was part of the history making in 1994 of one of those reggae artists who was able to push reggae, John, to the liberation of this country using the power of reggae. So tomorrow is 60 years since the South African reggae musician Lucky Philip Dube was born in Azania, South Africa. Asante sana, John. Let's also leading the conversation, SAfm, observing the Women's Month.
Advocate Sibu Mantula, thanks very much.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our transactional banking solutions. Accessing our transactional banking solutions means you'll get a dedicated manager from the country's best relationship bank. When you have a dedicated relationship manager, their business is to understand your business and its financial needs. By understanding all your needs, they can connect you with the right sector and product experts across 15 key African markets. You see, there's transactional banking, then there's transactional banking with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Take some calls. Mpo is in Randfontein. Good morning.
Good morning, my brother. No, I thought quickly I must say, I don't think the other two listeners listened to the prof properly. He did say it's important for the police to protect themselves when they're under attack. But it must not be a common thing that every time they get shot. So he says we should drill deeper, but also he can't give commitment that the police were wrong or right. But he does not say the police can't protect themselves. So if you come and say he actually don't take the lives of the police serious, I think it is misrepresentation. I've listened to him carefully. Because sometimes police can get the power in their hands and shoot. Even they start shooting before the other people shoot. Their work is to arrest, not to kill. I think he was making the point.
Mpo in Randfontein, correcting one or two callers. Thank you very much. Preston in Durban, hi.
Hi. So I just want to raise the issue of crime intelligence here. Sometimes I think that when people want government to do things, decisively. They think of shooting a lot of people. It comes up with Alzheimer's, all kinds of social problems. We've got to crack down hard. Cracking down hard always means, as Pierre DeVos said, like killing young black men. There's a particular problem when we get the situation where there's a shootout and all of these people are killed. The problem is, of course, the information that they have now disappears. That is highly convenient for the people behind them. I mean, I know a lot of these situations. I actually know some of the people who've been involved in some of these crimes. And it seems to me that what just gets hidden away all the time are the well-connected people, wealthy people behind them. All of the people shot just takes those wealthy people, the people who are driving the violence, driving the crime, lets them off the hook. And it raises questions about possible corruption in the process, as well as potentially murder as well, because then the police don't have to investigate what is actually happening here. We need to understand the connections between working class crime and middle class crime. And often the middle class criminals are exactly the ones who are driving it, and they're exactly the ones who get away.
Lots to talk about. Preston in Durban, thank you very much with interesting views there.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
If you go into Pretoria off the N4 into Hatfield, there is a collision scene this morning. So coming off the N4 onto Pretoria Street, just by N Street, I think it's by the McDonald's there. There is a crash, and traffic's all the way back through to Watermeyer Street. Collision on the M1 south towards Joburg, coming through from Centurion. That collision by Samrand Road. Traffic stays heavy from the Brockfontein interchange. The alternative side road, R101. Old Joburg Road's quite slow as well. Two breakdowns around Joburg, one on the R21 south of the Benoni exit in the roadwork, so that stays heavy if you're airport bound, and a breakdown before Galuli, so N3 north coming through from the Elands interchange, Germiston, Alberton very heavy. Durban really battling along this morning. You've got obstruction, stationary trucks both sides of Spaghetti Junction. Southbound it looks like you've got sort of 1.5, so that's effectively one lane open near the Clare Road Bridge. That's a very heavy backlog all the way back to Queen Nandi Drive, and all the sort of alternative routes in that area heavily backed up as motorists try to come off at the Mgena exit to avoid that. And then going north is a breakdown just at Spaghetti Junction, so coming through from Cement Factory, that stays busy as well. So there's a lot of problems there. The M13's heavy, the N3 outbound from Sherwood's bad, the Alpine Road, Felix Flamini route, absolutely jam-packed with motorists trying to get sort of north-south by avoiding the N2. The other issue in Durban this morning is a really heavy delay up the M7 from North to Dean, North Park, big queues in towards St John's Avenue Bridge territory in the central Pinetown area. Cape Town this morning, crash going off the N2 into Hayderveld. It's Danafontein Road by Ascension, so that's quite slow. And again this morning, no traffic lights on the N2 at Victoria Street. Keep in mind, it is a Friday, so you've got some weekend volumes already in the mix. The N2, both the directions, very heavily backed up into that Victoria Street junction in the heart of Somerset West. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
From 1936 to the future, from Ekaya, Ekasi, to Jozi and Urkan to the world. From dance and poetry to stages filled with our hopes and dreams. From SABC radio stations to cross-border triumphs. From drama, comedy and heart-pounding sport to raise our flag. From culture and spirit to the streets where talent is grown. From generation to generations and the shows that kept us entertained. So, what are you waiting for? Kumbule Kaya. SABC has always been home to our joy, stories and Msanti's magic. Come home to SABC Plus. Still home to the best of who we are.
Mzansi Africa's beautiful game is back. Reigning champions Ezimnyama Ngani want to do it again, but they must conquer their battle against Kevin Hunt and his troops. However, Matsatsansa Pitori have a massive plan to march to the semi-final. This is the MTN 8 quarter-final. Wafa Wafa. Orlando Pirates versus SuperSport United. This Saturday, 3 August at 5:30 p.m. Live on SABC 1 and SABC radio stations. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com. # We Love It Here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAfm, let's talk.
It's 5 to 8. Only 2 people in 5 say they can endure financial setback to or achieve financial freedom. Half of respondents feel as if they're in control of their finances. I know that feeling. Let's find out how we can try and solve this problem with Sipho Mkwabe. He's one of the regional executives at Sanlam. Sipho, good morning to you. Thanks for joining us. Worrying stats. What can we do to try and alleviate these stresses of debts and money that we have these days?
Good morning, John, and dear listeners. No, thanks for having me. It is quite interesting. In fact, the piece of stats that you've just shared now is not the only concerning stat. It is also concerning to see that most people appear to live payday to payday. And anxiety about future finances remains a significant concern, especially for low-income earners, where we see there is a big correlation between income and financial confidence. People that earn less than 8,000 Rand a month seem to score very low across all the indices that we track. But you've asked now, what do we do about this? I think the basics are where we start, John, I would say. We need to encourage people to set specific financial goals, write them down, track them on a monthly basis, regardless of income, because the levels of financial confidence don't necessarily depend on how much money you make. You can still have a certain level of financial confidence regardless of the income that you earn. But there are these basics that you need to have on a monthly or weekly basis.
So even if, I was going to use a bad word, even if we're really, really struggling, these lovely things you say, like financial goals, budgeting, tracking spend, delayed gratification, living below your means, a lot of people are already living below their means. They don't have any budgeting. What comes in goes out.
No, that is true. That is true. Especially, of course, like I said, with for low income earners, the reality is you can still live within your means, even if it's not a low income.
Right.
It doesn't mean obviously that you're gonna live a splashing life, but you can still live within your means, and we encourage people to live within their means. And what is interesting though also, John, is that because people are under financial pressure, we see a lot of side hustle gigs, a lot of Gen Zs and millennials come into the world of work through the side gigs. People sell this on the side and sell that on the side just to make sure that they are able to show up their income to be able to make ends meet.
And that's, I guess, important. Make sure that your side hustle, if you can, turn it into a business if you can. But the way to do that is to make sure that you're using any income that you do get responsibly.
That is true.
Right.
And it is also interesting as far as that is concerned to see the differences in generation. We see that the millennials and the Gen Z tend to report higher financial self-determination, and they are more likely to be aware of their goals and what they need to do, and they are more willing to learn new methods of handling their finances and increase their financial knowledge.
In this research that you did, the Sanlam Financial Confidence Index of 2024, where do older people, retirees, fit within this confidence?
So that's interesting. So what we find is that baby boomers, so maybe let me just take a step back. In this index, we track 3 separate areas. There is the bit about financial self-determination, there is the bit about financial resilience, and financial well-being. Baby boomers tend to score high on financial well-being. And I suppose it really has to do with the fact that, as you said, people have retired and life has taught them a lot of lessons, so they tend to be content with where they are. One of the respondents actually commented that even though they don't have a lot, they are content with what they have.
That's interesting. Also, the generations are so different, as you say. The one generation is doing something completely different to another generation, and I guess that affects how people see money. I remember when I was young, money wasn't a thing. You just it came in and you spent it. But as you get older, you start to realize you've got to put something aside if you can.
That's true. But it also says a lot about what we need to teach our kids.
Yes.
So that there is a generation that is more financially aware and confident than we are currently.
Is there a place that we can find this Financial Confidence Index report?
100%, yeah. So I suppose if you just Google Sanlam Financial Confidence Report, you in that you'll be able to find it. You can go to sanlam.co.za, you'll be able to find it there as well.
Okay, lots of reading there. Sipo One, sorry, I'll get it right now. Sipo Mwabe. It's easier than I thought it would be. Sorry, Sipo Mwabe, Regional Executive at Sanlam. Thanks very much for joining us. You're with SAfm. Coming up after the news at 8 o'clock, the ANC and the Freedom Front Plus have taken over the Western Cape's Oudtshoorn municipality, and we will talk about this boxing saga at the Olympic Games.
You are listening to John Gericka on SAfm.
Essential cover from OUTsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, day 2 of the ANC holding its National Executive Committee meeting and a stern warning to prison warders assisting inmates. Good morning. The ANC's National Executive Committee meeting is reflecting on the outcomes of the May 29th election, which saw the party dip below 50% for the first time in 3 decades. The 6-day meeting of the ANC's highest decision-making body started yesterday in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The ANC's first Deputy Secretary General, Nomvula Mokonyane, and the party's head of elections, Mdumiseni Ntuli, are expected to report back on the reflections of the elections and what led to the ANC losing its majority, forcing it into a government of national unity. Earlier, the party's Secretary General Fikile Mbalula said the outcomes of the meeting of the NEC would be tabled at its Lekgotla starting on Sunday.
We will then report to the Lekgotla the work and the decisions of the National Executive Committee in the form of this perspective. How this moment is interpreted by the National Executive Committee. We'll then look at governance, what affect the people and what steps we are going to take, what steps have already been taken to do what we have said we want to do in the manifesto. The cost of living, job creation, the expenditure in terms of the budget, what are we going to do, and so on in terms of governance situation in the country.
The Umkhonto weSizwe Party Youth League says it's shocked that Teachers Union SATU in Gauteng is not supporting young people who are protesting against the termination of the teacher assistant contracts. 32,000 teacher assistants were employed as part of the Youth Brigade program in public schools across the province. They are demanding permanent employment from the government. It's reported that police fired rubber bullets to disperse the protesters. The League has strongly condemned the violent police response. The League's acting Secretary General Sithembile Nkosi.
The unemployment rate is sitting at an alarming rate of about 59.7%. And this termination of contracts of these 32,000 young people just only exacerbates the already critical issue. And more young people are being pushed into a corner of desperation, into unemployment and into poverty. And right now they need someone to be in their corner. They need someone to be with them.
The Correctional Services Department has warned prison warders found to be assisting inmates to get contraband items that they will be fired. This after prison officials confiscated cell phones, money as well as drugs, including dagga and heroin in a raid at Durban's Westville prison last night. This comes after similar raids at the Goodhood prison in Cape Town and the Johannesburg prison in the past 2 weeks. The Correctional Services National Commissioner, Magoti Tobagale.
Some of the contrabands are actually utilized to establish the facts, including the fact that we also interview the offenders. When I'm saying some of the contrabands, I basically mean cell phones. We get to open them. We are able to see the conversations or listening to the conversations, and that points us to those that might have assisted. So after the investigation, we then take appropriate steps.
The Polokwane municipality says some streets have been closed for the opening of the Limpopo legislature. Premier Popi Ramathuba will deliver the opening address at the Jack Botha Hall in Polokwane. Ramathuba is expected to meet and greet Polokwane residents while in a motorcade which is expected to start at the SABC Park. Polokwane traffic official Gaugelo Mpago.
as we'll be having the 7th opening of the Provincial Legislative Assembly, we are going to have a motorcade that will be leaving from Landros Mare and Hospital, which is the SABC Park. We are going to proceed straight in Landros Mare up to Thabo Mbeki, where we are going to turn right into Thabo Mbeki, then proceed up to Church Street, where we are going to turn left into Church Street, then left again into Bodenstein, where the convoy will be getting into the Checkpointers Hall. Then from there we'll be having the second convoy, which will be leaving from the office of the Premier. The convoy will be from Bickard Street, and we are going to have temporary road closure.
The law minister in Bangladesh has defended the ban on Jamaat-e-Islami Party and its student wing from participating in political activities. Anis al-Haq has blamed the party supporters for the violence during recent students-led protest over quotas in civil service jobs.
We have evidence that they have participated in the killings and in the destruction of government and private property in the recent happenings that took place in Bangladesh. So we found that under the Anti-Terrorism Act, it is a party which subscribes terrorism, and therefore the government decided to ban it.
Recapping the top story, the ANC's National Executive Committee meeting is reflecting on the outcomes of the May 29th election, which saw the party dip below 50% for the first time in 3 decades. The outcomes of the meeting of the NEC would be tabled at its Lukhotla starting on Sunday. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS CAR to 43187. Many insurers claim to be the best, but the proof is in the numbers. Outsurance has consistently had the best ombudsman for short-term insurance results for the past 11 years. And Outsurance clients always get something out. Outsurance pays over 1.7 million rand in out bonuses every day. Why would you want to be with anyone else? SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754, or visit outsurance.co.za for a 10-minute quote and you could save thousands. A life insurer and FSP, T's, C's and information is online.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm Sports headlines, plenty of action to look forward to as the Olympic track events kick off with high hopes for Team South Africa. Prudence Sekgodiso competes in the 800 meters tonight with Akani Simbine targeting gold in the 100 meter sprint. All the details at around 8:30.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Still very slow into Pretoria this morning, coming in off the N4, the Emelafeni highway. There's a crash just where the N4 becomes Pretoria Street by N Street near the McDonald's in the Hatfield area. So quite a backlog of traffic on the N4 inbound today. Vidkoppen Road, no traffic lights at Church Street in Johannesburg. North 4 ways through to North Riding is quite heavily backed up. The N3 starting to move from Germiston through to Galulis after a breakdown at Van Buren earlier this morning has been cleared. Durban, no real change. The broken down vehicle's still there. N2 north at the Spaghetti Junction. The N2's heavy from the M7. Even worse on the southbound side. A stationary truck just by Clare Road Bridge looks to be filtering all the traffic into a single lane to pass it. The traffic remains heavy all the way back through to Queen Nundy Drive. And Cape Town, if you need to get out through Somerset West today, give yourself plenty of time. It's Friday volumes in the mix with no traffic lights on the N2 at Victoria Street. There's some very heavy backlogging in the Somerset Western Strand area as a result. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
Couple of interesting stories coming up in this half hour. The ANC and Freedom Front Plus have taken over the Western Cape's Oudtshoorn municipality. We will talk to the ANC provincial spokesperson of the Western Cape in a moment. Also, a great initiative for as part of Women's Month of women empowerment in the energy sector. More than 100 South African women working in the energy sector will graduate the Women Leading in the Energy Sector program, WLES. We'll find out what that program's all about. We'll take your calls and messages as well. Hopefully we'll squeeze in some time for that. We've been a bit lax on that, so apologies. And then towards the end of the program, 2 boxers who failed gender tests at the World Championships are cleared to compete in the Olympics. One of them competed yesterday. We'll find out what this means for boxing and women's sport as well with Colin Nathan, who's a consultant trainer, manager, TV presenter and commentator. All of that coming up in the next hour.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. It's the first elimination challenge, and to stay in the competition, the bottom 6 contestants must channel their inner Italian by baking a delicious handmade pizza using leftovers from the fridge. Who will survive to bake another day? Find out on the Tastemaster Junior. Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1, and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2. Witness the global battle of great athletes from South Africa and from all over the world in the Olympic Games Paris 2024. From the heart-pounding races on the track to the graceful routines on the gymnastics floor, each event promises to deliver moments of sheer brilliance and sporting excellence. Live the intense rivalries, inspiring comebacks and record-breaking performances right here across all SABC TV channels, SABC radio stations, on the move with SABC Plus or online on sabcsport.com. Hashtag the global battle of great athletes. The Olympic Games Paris 2024. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
Let's find out what's happening in Oudtshoorn. Freedom Front Plus and the ANC have taken control of the Oudtshoorn municipality. There's now a Freedom Front Plus mayor and an ANC deputy mayor. The PA has the speaker's position. Let's maybe go back a little bit and find out what's happening there. Mohammed Khalid Said is the ANC provincial spokesperson in the Western Cape. Mohammed, good morning to you. Thanks very much. Take us back. Why was there a motion of no confidence in the DA mayor initially?
Thank you so much. So the initial that was the mayor, was the former DA, or should I, former mayor, were very much around issues of governance and service delivery, and the inability of the mayor to work all political formations and all councils to make it work. That was the problem. So even in the coalition itself that they had with the Freedom Front, there was a breakdown in relations. They've been having issues with him, but beyond just their own coalition, among council, there was also lots of dissatisfaction among the residents as well. To say that the mayor does not listen to the pleas of the people of Oudtshoorn, and particularly around service delivery issues. So hence there was a motion of no confidence against the mayor.
What I'm getting from this is these coalitions, these agreements the political parties have with each other is all very fluid. This was a DA, Freedom Front and Independent Civic Organization were together and they got the former mayor in. Now the Freedom Front Plus has moved and joined with the ANC. Why do you see this happening?
Look, I think up until the start of the government of national unity at the national level, we've been having a situation, particularly at local government, political parties have not really entered into focused coalition agreements. And it's been very much based on position. Even though voters, if you look at the results of the 2021 elections, no party got the absolute majority in Oudtshoorn. And this situation was there, but now we've been seized with it at a national and at a provincial. There's been a greater focus. And what has happened now in this regard, I think what's very, very positive about what I call, it's not a coalition necessarily in a narrow sense. It's a government of local unity. Because how we have started off things, for example, now in Oudtshoorn, in line with the approach that the ANC took at the national level, there is a statement of intent. A government of local political parties have signed that particular statement. Now, the principles are very much mirror what we see at the national level, but it's very much localized about issues affecting people in Oudtshoorn. And so now it's based on policy. That was not there before. Also, what has happened this time around is even the DA have been invited to form part of this particular government. So, and I think that creates a greater environment for a greater sense, stability and service delivery. We will have our differences. We're not going to be agreeing with the Freedom Front and with the PA and everybody
for much of the time on various issues, but at least we agree to a minimum program of action in the best interest of the people of Oudtshoorn, and that's what matters.
Because
and we are hopeful.
If I told you 10 years ago that the ANC would allow a Freedom Front Plus mayor and have an ANC as your deputy mayor, you would have laughed at me. It was never going to work together, and here you are.
Not necessarily, because the ANC always, even if you look at the manner in which the ANC has the transition from apartheid to the democratic dispensation, the ANC has always been open to talking and working with various political formations, with various interest groups in South Africa. Many of those who are now in the Freedom Front Plus, ANC spoke to during the CODESA negotiations. So we've always had the best interests of South Africans, but I also understand that the landscape has changed and things are much more nuanced now, so we have to work together.
Quickly, we got to wrap it up. If this doesn't work, are you more than happy to go against Johannes Allers and call more notions of no confidence, or is this at least in for a couple of years so that Oudtshoorn residents can have some sort of consistency?
We are confident that this is true because it's based on a statement of intent and the individuals involved want to make it work. And there's a national backdrop to this as well. And let me just add as I conclude, this lays the basis for us to engage around other municipalities, because there are many hung municipalities in the Western Cape, and we want to bring stability to those hung municipalities within the spirit of the government of national unity and with the spirit of the politics of cooperation and building consensus. So we want to make this work. We'll be going into formal discussions with the Freedom Front Plus around the rest of the municipalities. And to say we have reached out officially to the Democratic Alliance even before that. Once they respond to us formally, we will also be talking to them. We want to talk to everyone and make the Western Cape work at the level of local government.
Mohammed Khalid Saeed, thank you very much. ANC Provincial Spokesperson in the Western Cape. Okay, I'll go. Okay, we're going to take calls. 0614 104 107. Shawnee Sani is in Sandton. You've been waiting a while. Hello, Shawnee Sani. Good morning.
Hey, John. Thanks for taking my call and welcome to the morning show.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah. I listened to Mpho talking about the two callers that you had immediately after the professor.
Yeah.
And I think those two callers did hear properly what the professor was saying. And I think the qualm in this whole thing is that 10 criminals were killed in one province, and now there's a halabaloo. And then the question that stands then is, was there this kind of a halabaloo, or do we get to have this kind of a halabaloo when police officers are falling? They are also humans, like any other person. The question is that each and everyone's rights are protected, but then those of police officers are not protected. And we're not saying that when they do wrong, they must not be brought to book. But I can tell you for free, John, in each and every bulletin, whether it's SAfm or any other radio station as well as TV, we all hear that police approached and the criminals started shooting. What must then police do now? Must they act like Martin Lawrence on Bad Boys and just raise the badge? Police, while people are shooting at you.
Yeah.
It's very funny that me and you, we are, which rightfully so I agree with, are protected against the police by IPID. And in that fray, also criminals are to be protected. Now, who's protecting the police?
Shawnee Sani, thank you very much with his views on the police shootings. Let us know what you think. 0614 104 107 if you want to send us a voice note. Lea Siba is in Shukakune. Good morning.
Yes, John, I'm speaking to the Sira here in Khobokwai.
How's it?
You see, John, I just want to talk about the ANC NEC Lekgotla that is currently underway.
Yes.
You see, for the leadership of the ANC, there is nothing to diagnose what happened in previous elections, this 2024 elections. We all know what happened. Apart from poor service delivery, corruption, and other maybe related issues, but the main issue here was about the splinter party called Mkondo Wesizwe. And Mkondo Wesizwe was a quite a sizable number of people who refused the renewal of the ANC and refused to account. Remember, people were supposed to account for state capture and other activities that took place in the country. So they decided to form their own party, which is called Mkondo Wesizwe, and took away our 14% vote.
I think it's that easy, Lesiba.
Yes, and
it's that easy. Who needs to
Yeah.
go to look? But surely the Lekgotla would be like, okay, how do we fix it?
Yeah, that would be for formal
That's the
analysis, but we know. But look, now, John, can you ask yourself, after having a disciplinary meeting, Jacob Zuma, former president, has been dismissed, but his own party, Mkondo Wesizwe, it's refusing to accept that the man who's leading another party has been dismissed from his own party and continue their own life. Why they refuse to leave the ANC alone? It is because they know that the Zulu nation did not vote. KwaZulu-Natal, the whole of KwaZulu-Natal and parts of Gauteng and Mpumalanga, where there is a Zulu-speaking people, they did not vote the ANC. They voted for Mkondo Wesizwe. Now they realize that with 14%, they will never be in charge of the country and ultimately be in charge of the national resources. Now they want to remain there as Mkondo Wesizwe, wait for national conference of the ANC, push out President Cyril Ramaphosa and his comrades, so that Mkondo Wesizwe, EFF can come together into ANC and elect a Zulu man or a Zulu lady who's going to be the president of the ANC in order to get the votes of them, because they know the countrywide, the ANC is still in charge. It's just that the Zulu vote who decided not to vote the ANC. Once they go back to the ANC, in Limpopo, where I'm coming from, whether ANC is led by the Zulu or led by, we will always vote the ANC. But in KwaZulu-Natal, if the ANC is led by other racial people, they don't want to vote ANC.
All right.
They will vote ANC in the next elections once Willem Kizze becomes the president, and the ANC will get above 50 majority. But it's not good indication of the party that's non-racist, non-sexist, and moving forward. It's taking us back, but we are going to claim the power again.
Lesiba, thank you very much for his views on what's happening with the ANC.
You are listening to John Gerika on SAfm.
As part of
The
Women's...
Science of Life on SAfm.
Sorry, we're all jumping the gun there. Yeah, it's Friday. 21 minutes past 8. As part of Women's Month, we look at the efforts of women empowerment in the energy sector. 100 South African women who are working in the energy sector are graduating from the Women Leading in the Energy Sector program this Women's Month. The EWSETA's program, or EUSETA, in partnership with Duke Corporate Education and Eskom, saw the women spend 9 months gaining invaluable leadership skills ahead of a global immersion which they undertook in June. Women who participate in the program are middle managers, executives, SMME leaders, and TV lecturers as well. Mpho Mokapele is the Energy and Water Sector Education Training Authority CEO. That's what EWSETA stands for, Energy and Water Sector Education Training Authority. Mpho, good morning to you. Good news story. We have young women leaders.
Good morning to you and to the listeners. Yes, indeed, we have a lot of young leaders in South Africa.
Tell us a little bit more about this program. What did they do? How did they learn it?
So this program was initiated by Energy and Water SETA, and where this is really born from is, as part of the Energy and Water SETA's mandate, is to look at the skills gaps in the energy and the water sector. On an annual basis, we receive statistics from different energy companies, and I'll focus on the energy companies now. And it has been reflecting that we have a lot of women engineers that are entering the space, but not a lot of them are making it up through to the senior leadership and executive leadership in the space. So the program is to build a cohort of South African women leadership that can participate in the boardrooms, that can participate in forming policies and taking discussions and informing discussions in our boardrooms in the energy space.
100 graduates, just over 100 graduates. Is that enough to close this gap that you're talking about?
And so it's not enough, and this is why EWSETA focuses on partnerships. So in the last couple of years, in the last 4 years, we have partnered with South African Photovoltaic Association. We've also partnered with SAWIA, which is in the wind space. We've also partnered with Women in Nuclear. We've partnered with water boards and also with a number of departments that are dealing with energy and the water space. It's a collaborated effort that's not going to be done in 1 year. And in these partnerships, what we've done is focus on women in nuclear, women in energy, women in wind, so that we build a cohort of these women, not only 105. And we will continue to do this in the coming years with most partners who are potentially listening, who are also wanting to contribute to driving the inclusion of women, especially in the critical spaces and the critical sectors for our country.
What specifically was focused on in this program?
So what we identified is that, so we specifically sat with ESCOM and we said, what are the needs? What are the skills needs in the organization? And what we identified is that a lot of women are qualified. These are engineers. Most of them are engineers who have operated in the space. Some of these are power station managers, the power stations that are doing well right now. And they have really become good at their craft. And what we wanted to look at is to how do we build leaderships in them? How do we also focus not on them being specialists, but becoming generalist leaders that are going to look at operational excellence, that are going to look at people, building people, that are going to look at just beyond the nuts and the bolts, building a holistic team and functional operations in the organization.
And what do the women think of all of this?
Oh, I'm sure a lot of them, this was a lot of work for them. Most, as I said, we've got power station managers who still have their day-to-day job.
Wow.
So they didn't like us because during Christmas, during the festive seasons, they were sitting in class. But the appreciation of what the transformation they've gone through just in the 9 months is really amazing, especially when you look at the TVET lecturers who we put a lot of young people in their hands to build, but yet we don't invest in building the TVET lecturers. They really appreciated this, and the impact should be seen beyond just their personal gains.
Okay, why did you include TVETs and SMMEs in this as well? Why not just take the people that are already in the industry?
Again, as CETAs, our mandate again goes beyond just educating individuals. Our role is to also ensure that we are supporting the public college system. And in the past, we know that a lot of people don't want to enter the TVET space. What we want to do is encourage that uptake of TVET occupations, and therefore we can only do that when we assess TVET to enhance the lecture capacity. So SMMEs also, the energy sector is very harsh. The energy sector, if we look at the just energy transition, very limited space for women to take part. And what we've done as EWC is let's capacitate these women so that they understand the just energy transition, they understand what the global market is doing, so that they're able to also meaningfully take part in the economic activities in this space.
Mpumukapele, thank you very much. Energy and Water Sector Education Training Authority, or as you heard, Energy and Water SETA CEO. Thank you very much and well done to them.
Thank you.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Good morning. SAfm Breakfast from Nelspruit. You know, Helen Zille tongue is very loose, and I think that DA is going to lose a lot if they continue to allow Helen Zille to speak on their behalf, because definitely his tongue is very loose. He can't think before he speaks. He always think after he has spoken, and therefore it's giving us as African people a difficult time to think of maybe even if we wanted to be part of them, not to be part of them because of the way he thinks or the way she thinks she's better than anyone else in the country. Thank you.
Good morning, John. It's Kosnat here. Zille is right and is telling us the truth. If DA should decide to pull out of so-called GNU, we are not going to have a government until Ramaphosa go down with his knee and bow down to MK and the EFF just to rejoin another, I don't know what they are going to call it, but this so-called GNU is based on the DA. Without a DA, nothing is going to happen here. And Mbalula is going to talk like this as if he don't care. But aside there, he knows that they beg from Helen Zille.
Some views on the GNU. Let's get some views on the police and the police shooting discussion we had.
Hi, John. I think your guest is giving me another perspective, because I always thought that the police are doing a good job of killing these people. But now I'm also being schooled to say really, we don't know if these guys are kingpins or not. Most of the time they are not. So which means they are just being used as scapegoats.
Hi, very good morning, John. It's Johnson in Bombella. Look, we are too hard on the police. I don't know why. The police are under siege. Their police are under attack from hardcore criminals. If you look at the guys who were killed in KZN in the past few weeks, these are hardcore criminals. You understand? So these are not like guys who were stealing from a house that were killed. These are hardcore criminals who are bloodthirsty. So what should police do in circumstances like this? The police should fire with fire. That's what they should do.
Very differing views, and I think we're going to have some time after news and traffic and sport and finance as well to be able to take some more calls on that as well. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. Amandla's here today taking your calls, and you can send us a voice note as well, 0614 104 107. We were hoping to talk about the two boxers that failed gender tests at the World Championships. We're trying to, Colin Nathan might not be able to make it, so we're going to try and find another analyst, another boxing expert to be able to help us with this and give their views. We'll also take your views. What do you make of this? They failed gender tests at the World Championships. They've been cleared to compete at the Olympic Games. Very controversial, and we will find out why. The IBA was banned from running the Olympic boxing tournament, so now there's the IOC's Paris 24 boxing unit that have more relaxed rules. So we'll discuss that. Hopefully we'll squeeze that in and plenty more after the news headlines at 8:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, Public Works and Infrastructure Minister Dean McPherson has described as unacceptable spending over 200 million rand on renovating a building which has remained unoccupied. The ANC's National Executive Committee meeting is reflecting on the outcomes of the May 29th election, which saw the party dip below 50% for the first time in 3 decades. The outcomes of the meeting of the NEC would be tabled at its Lekgotla starting on Sunday. And the Mkhonto weSizwe Party Youth League says it's shocked that Teachers Union SATU in Gauteng is not supporting young people who are protesting against the termination of teacher assistant contracts. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning, Gauteng, easing up quite nicely. A little bit of traffic still on the N1 down towards the Olifantsfontein exit, and then the Mike 1 Beclue down to Marlborough Drive, about the worst of the traffic conditions. Durban, a collision on the R102 at JG Champion Drive, so if you're moving between Phoenix, Verulam and Palmview, it's all heavy. Still the breakdowns on the N2 highway southbound at Clare Road Bridge, that remains heavy from Queen Nundy, northbound at Spaghetti Junction, so queues still coming up from the M7 side. And if you're driving Cape Town, 2 real standout queues this morning. One is a police incident on the M5 at Kuberg Interchange, so that's slow coming through Rondebosch, and no traffic lights again. Day 2, N2 at Victoria Street, very heavy in that central Somerset West area. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Morning, Zai.
Did you hear that boxing ring go at the end? Ting, 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 ting.
Ting, ting, ting. We're not going to be able to do the interview. Sadly, Colin Nathan's not going to be able to make it, so we're going to have to postpone this to another conversation. I was really looking forward to doing that.
I got my gloves on.
Were you all ready to go? Hey? You and I in the boxing ring together.
Imagine XX chromosome versus XY chromosome.
You'd win.
I'd win.
Okay, athletics today.
Woohoo! Excitement building as our track and field stars. They'll be taking centre stage at the Paris Olympics after a strong performance by our swimmers. It's time for the athletes like Akani Simbine to shine. Simbine is in top form, ready to compete in the 100-meter sprint this weekend with the final scheduled for Sunday nights. Let's hear from Akani himself.
I used to look at, who's coming into the competition, who I'm going to race against. But I think this year it's just different mentally and just myself. I think I've just been focused on myself and my journey and how I am going to race and how I'm going to put my race together. And that has been something that has been working for me this whole year, and I'm happy with it. And that's how I'm looking at it here. It's just me and my lane and me running my race pattern the way I want to run it.
Now, middle distance runner Prudence Khodiso will compete in the 800-meter heats, aiming for a medal tonight as well. And don't miss Wait van Niekerk anchoring the men's 4x400-meter relay team. Staying with the Olympics, the British tennis icon Andy Murray bowing out of professional tennis as his career ended with a straight sets defeat in the Olympic men's doubles quarterfinals. Murray, the two-time Olympic singles champion, and Dan Evans lost 6-2, 6-4 to the Americans' third seed Taylor Fritz and Tommy Paul. The 37-year-old Murray confirmed before the Paris Games it will be his final event before retiring from sport. In the women's draw singles, Croatia's Donna Vekic underlined her form. She defeated Anna Karolina Schmidlova to reach the final of the Olympic women's singles. Vekic won 6-4, 6-love to book a gold medal meeting with China's Zhang Jiwen, who upset the world number one Iga Swiatek in the other semi-final. Soccer Polokwane City head coach Puti Mohafe has stopped short of telling SABC Sport that the club has put a not-for-sale sign on the Bafana attacker Oswin Apollos. Apollos was part of the Bafana squad that returned with a bronze medal from the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations earlier this year, has been the subject of interest, particularly from Tunisian giants Esperance as well as Kaizer Chiefs. But Mohafe says he's not ready to lose Apollos.
Apollos, yes, I hear there are teams that are looking for his signature, and we cannot, as a coach, I cannot lose someone who is so influential into the team. So I just spoke to the management, and I hope they heard me when I said, no, I need to keep him. I need that progress that we are looking for. We need the improvement that we are looking for. So we need to have that. We need to gain that with the players that we trust and the people that we trust.
And that's how we leave you with the trusted brand SAfm. More sport around 12:30. I don't know if you can trust him. John Gericke. I'm Saika.
The business update on SAfm.
I cut us short every time, Zai. I was just looking at the schedule, this athletic schedule. Trying to keep up now is chaos.
No,
trying to see
total
where
chaos.
South Africans
I don't
are.
know. SABC Sport.
SABC Sport and all of us. That's my job, is to try and find out how Kyle Blichnout and Adrian Wiltschut will perform tonight. We will find out.
Yes.
There's so much athletics.
Oh, that's the 1,500 meters. Yeah.
And 10,000 meters. All right, all of that still ahead. It's 24 minutes to 9 o'clock. Let's get the latest business. Cheers. Thank you very much. And Tauleng Lechela is going to tell us what's happening with two of the biggest companies in the world. Let's start with Apple.
Now, Apple, John, their iPhone sales have taken a knock. Now, in my personal opinion, I think sales have dipped because people are realizing that Apple has been releasing the same phone for about 4 or 5 years now. I know the tech guys will say that something about how advanced the operating systems have become and whatnot, but let's be honest, an iPhone 13 is as good as an iPhone 15. But despite this, it is a bit of a cult. I'm even part of it. And to further prove my point about iPhone's faltering dominance in the first quarter of the year, Samsung beat Apple in becoming the world's biggest smartphone brand. Anyway, my personal opinion aside, iPhone sales fell 1% in Apple's fiscal third quarter, raking in just under $40 billion in revenue. iPhone, however, still remains one of Apple's most important businesses, accounting for about 46% of the company's total sales during the quarter. Despite the little blip in the iPhone division, Apple's overall revenue and earnings topped analysts' expectations. Notable growth was recorded in its iPad division, where sales jumped 24% after it released a new iPad, spurring a wave of upgrades.
Oh, they've got a calculator on the iPad now. Huge. Another big company, Amazon. What's happening?
So Amazon's share price fell after it posted, a mixed bag of numbers with growth all around, but just not enough growth as some divisions missed expectations or fell short when compared to its competitors. Now let's start off with its retail business. Amazon has been facing tough competition with the likes of Temu and Shein just stealing market share through its cheaper prices. Sales in that unit grew 5%. Moving over to its cloud services, Amazon Web Services expanded by 19%, but investors were concerned that AWS is growing at a slower rate than rivals Microsoft and Google. Both of those companies reported cloud growth of 29%. Lastly, the advertising unit, which has become a major source of profit recently, while most of its ad sales still come from sponsored products on its website, the company has introduced new services and increased its share of the digital advertising market, where it competes with big players like Meta and Alphabet. Revenue there jumped 20%.
And what's going to happen in the markets today, do you think?
So local markets are on track to kick the day off on a sour note. Not much happening on the local front, John, but traders are digesting big rates decisions across the globe. We're also seeing domestic traders taking a bit of a wait and see approach ahead of the local earnings season. The same kind of sentiment playing out in the currency scene. The rand quite steady ahead of U.S. labor data, sitting at 18.26 to the dollar. Moving over to Asia, those markets still in the red. The Japanese Nikkei really taking a beating, down 5.8%. We're seeing the Asian tech stocks, particularly chip makers, tumbling on the back of the US's trade restrictions on those counters. Moving over to Wall Street, futures are in the red as well. Traders digesting tech earnings, the earnings we've just been talking about, earnings from Amazon and Apple.
Thank you very much. Have a great weekend.
Thanks, John.
We'll catch up with you again on Monday. And Taoleng Lechela bringing us an update on what's happening in the business.
At Specsavers, we're committed to offering affordable and professional eye care. That's why we're offering 1,500 Rand worth of savings with our winter promotion. Get a free frame up to the value of 1,500 Rand or use the 1,500 Rand on one of our leading lens enhancements. To qualify, simply purchase a comprehensive eye examination and prescription frame and lenses. Book online or call your nearest store today. Specsavers, for affordable eye care and a whole lot more. T's and C's apply.
Weeknights on S3 are all about winning, and winning big with Wheel of Fortune. For the first time in South Africa, Wheel of Fortune is on S3, Monday to Friday at 7:30 p.m, where Rorisang has South Africans locked into the world of word puzzles. Watch contestants spin the wheel to stand a chance of walking away with 100,000 Rand, or a car valued at over 500,000 Rand. You can also be part of the show and win big. To be part of the show, log on to wheeloffortunesa.tv and let the wheel decide your fate. Channel your inner wordsmith with Wheel of Fortune SA on S3. Open up.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
19 minutes to 9. We have some time this morning, Friday, and we were hoping to talk to a guest about these two boxers at the Olympic Games who failed gender tests at the World Championships but have now been cleared to compete at the Olympic Games. Let me see if I can explain this to you, and we'll get your views on this. Two boxers were disqualified in this World Championships. They failed gender eligibility tests. Iman Khalif of Algeria and Lin Yuting of Chinese Taipei both start their campaign this week, or the one started yesterday. Khalif fought against Italian Angela Carini in the 66-kilogram category. I think it lasted 45 seconds, all of 2 punches. And then Carini decided to call it quits. She says it's the hardest she's ever been hit in her career. So what happened is there was a comprehensive review by the IBA that it was going to uphold the fairness and integrity of the competition. But the IBA has been banned from running the Olympic boxing tournament in Paris because of long-running questions surrounding governance issues and a series of judging scandals. So now boxing in Paris is being run by the IOC's Paris 24 boxing unit, which has more relaxed rules than the IBA. The IOC's own MyInfo website acknowledges that both boxers failed gender eligibility tests last year. In information supplied to journalists in Paris, Khalif was disqualified then, just hours before her gold medal showdown against Yang Li in the 23 World Championship in New Delhi. It was revealed levels of testosterone failed to meet the eligibility criteria. Lin was stripped of her bronze medal after failing to meet eligibility requirements based on the results of a biochemical test. No real response from Lin, but Khalif has said that it's a big conspiracy, to quote, "People have conspired against Algeria so that its flag doesn't get raised and it doesn't win the gold medal." I'd like to get your views on this. Scientific research has found that average punching power is 162% greater in those that have gone through male puberty compared to females. The IOC has been approached to comment, but they have not done so yet. It's 8:45. Let's get your views. Starting with Mokwena in Rustenburg. You want to talk about the GNU. Good morning.
Morning, John. How are you, my brother?
Okay, go ahead.
Good. First thing, let's congratulate Tajana Smith for yesterday's performance.
Yes.
I think he did the counter crowd. Coming back to the GNU, I think this is where we need to give the flowers to the former statesman, the former President Jacob Zuma, because he is the first one to come out and say there's no GNU here. And suddenly Zille came out confirming what the former president has been saying. That only goes to show that indeed the former president is a professor when it comes to politics. So, and the ANC must now stop saying that this is GNU. They should just, come out and tell the nation that it is indeed a collision. And the only thing that the ANC had to hawk all these smaller parties, it was to have a leverage over DA, so that when the DA wants to pull out, they will still have those other small parties and will be able to have 50%, so that they should continue to be on the ruling seat.
Does it matter what we call it, as long as it works?
No, it matters very much.
Tell me why.
If I were to call you Hazel, will you be happy?
Yeah, but okay, I get your point. So it's not a government's national unity, but we must call it by what it is. A spade. It's a group of parties working together. Would you say led by the ANC or being led by the DA?
They've been led by the ANC,
right?
But the ANC, the DA have much power and control. In as much as DA was so very much furious when they had to, call these other smaller parties, from when it started, and it was the DA, the IFP only, and the ANC realized that should we keep the DA only here, we are going to have a problem, because they were demanding a lot of, senior position in the government. So they had to say, no, let's make sure that we pull in some other small parties to make sure that we have a leverage over them. Right. And that's what they did. So I think as a country we need to come to that and agree that, former President Jacob Zuma, he is indeed a star in politics. In as much as, SAfm and other, South African broadcasting media houses are not, happy about that. We know, but I think we need to come out and just spell it out as it is.
Mokwena in Rustenburg. Let's, Jonathan, I'm going to come to you about the shootings in a minute. I just want to go to Prophet OJ. He wants to talk about the GNU as well. Prophet OJ, go ahead.
Good morning, John, and how are you? I'm saved by the blood of God, Jesus Christ. When this thing started, John,
yes,
I was not happy about something that other parties were lured into the GNU when they were promised cabinet posts. So right from the start, the motive was not very, very right. And secondly, we are all aware that there is a tug of war behind closed doors between the DA and the ANC. So apparently they wanted us to believe that things are working well, but we are able to see, we are not children. We are able to see and smell the smoke that something is not very right. Look at this, what is this NHI? What is this?
You're right. The NHI, National Health Insurance.
Yeah, you are able to see that in actual fact they never agreed on this thing behind closed doors. So when they come to the open, they show us that they are not united in as far as it is concerned. The Bela, what's it called, Bela. It has also shown that they are not one in it. In a number of issues, it shows that behind closed doors, the ANC and the DA do not agree on some issues, and this is causing cracks on this. So I also believe that we shouldn't really call it the government of national unity, but we must look at it as DA, ANC having married together to try and build up something which we believe, if they are not very careful, it will cause cracks and breaks.
Prophet OJ, let's go to Jonathan in Gqeberha. You want to talk about the police shooting in story?
Yeah, good morning. Yeah, just from my side, in Eastern Cape, and I wish the professor can walk the townships at night. He probably won't. But yeah, the criminals act with impunity. I mean, the guns, they're so brazen. So I wish those KZN police can come to the Eastern Cape. And then just lastly, quickly, just on the GNU, whether you call it GNU, whether you call it the coalition, this was Helen Ziller, the madam. She likes to sow division. And she's an autocrat, so we shouldn't be giving her so much airtime. We should start to build this country. Let's build the country. Let's not be divisive. So yeah, that's the two comments I just wanted to add.
That's why I asked that question. Does it matter what it's called as long as everything works together? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I don't think where you call it coalition with GNU doesn't matter to me. I think to me it's about let's try. This is something new. Let's see if it works. Let's start to build it. Try and build it. But Helen just seems to be so divisive. Let's give it opportunity and let's see if we can make a difference, if this government can make a difference in our lives.
Jonathan in Gqeberha, thank you very much. We got a couple of boxing calls. We're going to take it after this.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Joburg's roads easing very nicely. Just a couple of hold-ups. One is the Mike 1 North moving through Crown up towards Empire Road. That's getting busy again. And if you're on the run through Midrand, bit of a slowdown between Samrand and Fontaine, but you're in and out of it pretty quickly. Durban has seen some real traffic pressures this morning with these breakdowns between Umgena Road and Spaghetti Junction. It looks like they're all being cleared, but the N2 South is very heavy because, of course, they can clear the truck away, but you've still got roadworks and you've still got a big backlog. So Queen Nundy Drive down the Clare Road Bridge is heavy. N3 coming out of Durban into Spaghetti Junction is pretty busy as well this morning. The N3 Peter Maritzburg to Durban being held now by a stationary truck at Linfield Park. That's starting to push traffic back towards the Ashburton exit. Cape Town, the police incident on the M5 North at Maitland. That scene has been cleared. Probably the biggest delay that you'll face in Cape Town at the moment, and this may just linger through the day. No traffic lights in the heart of Somerset West on the N2 at Victoria Street. Queuing traffic both ways, and if they stay out much longer today, you get Friday volumes in the mix, and it'll be pretty extreme traffic. So both ways, Somerset West, no lights at Victoria Street. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
You are listening to John Gericka on SAfm.
More time for calls. 9 minutes to 9. Kathy's in next. You're with SAfm. I'm John Gericka. Let's go to Rich in Durban. Rich, you want to talk about this boxing story?
Oh, John, yes, man. But before I go there, this GNU matter, really, the MK people, remember, these are the people that were ANC before. Their defection that is out of the window. They must just accept that they are missing out their FOMO, basically. It's what it is. If we were to call it something else tomorrow that they want, what changes? Nothing. Anyway, boxing. Women's sport, John, has a problem because where do you draw the line? Because I looked at the two boxers. I'm not a scientist, but on the physical look alone, the other one was classified as male with male hormones officially. The other one did not. Where do you draw the line? Because you will find that between the two of them, they probably have enhanced hormones, but the one just fell under and the one above. I'm not saying it's sexual, but in reality. So in soccer as well, I'm so glad my daughter has decided not to play soccer anymore because she was into soccer and I could see her having difficulties. So women's sport is a problem because where do you draw the line?
Okay, Rich in Durban wanting to know where the line is. Rich, I think it's got to do with testosterone levels and things. There was that whole Caster Semenya story, you see, and then that became an issue as well because it's just natural testosterone levels. Man Yanani, how's it?
Good morning, John. Thanks for getting my name correct. How are you?
Go ahead.
Yes, John. I wanted to talk about this boxing thing. Firstly, listen, big fan of yours. But yeah, you're correct to start with the Caster Semenya story, because if you go back to those findings that the IAAF made, I've always been curious about the long-term effects that they would have with regards to regulation of testosterone. But be that as it may, women's sports, John, it's quite simple. Men competing against women, it should not be happening. In fact, the Olympic Committee has a history of allowing such things to happen. I'll give you a couple of examples. The previous Olympics, there was an athlete from New Zealand who competed in the some weightlifting category. Born man until the age of 40, who then decided at the age of 40 he's going to identify as a woman. He never went through any hormonal therapy or anything of the sort, and then a year later he's allowed to compete in the Olympics. These are the previous Olympics. That's example number one. Example number two, if you do a bit of research, the Canadian soccer team, women's soccer team, they were allowed to play with somebody who identified as transgender, born man who says that they're a woman. I think this was about 2 Olympics back. So this is nothing new, John. This is nothing new. I think there's a bigger conversation to be had about the over-politicization of these bodies or authoritative bodies. Because if you look at what's happening in the United States, men are allowed to swim against women. If you follow a case or an athlete by the name of Riley Gaines, you will see the activism that she is having and the kind of pushback that she's having to deal with as a swimmer who has had to compete against her will against men. So I think, John, we can talk about this specific incident with regards to what's happening at the IOC or at the Olympics now. But I think there's a bigger conversation that we need to have about what is happening around the world with these authorities and these bodies that are essentially allowing men to compete against women, and what that is going to do for women's sport in the long run. Mind you, John, as a side note, I've been coaching for almost 20 years. Coaching 20 years, largely kids and young adults.
Yeah.
So
you know what you're talking about.
I have, I know what I'm talking about.
Manyanani, thank you very much for your views. This is the beginning. I think this conversation's been had for a while. It's just, these indecisions that are being made. We've seen some sports. This is the line, and we were talking, what was the call a couple of minutes ago? We need a line, and some sports have put that line down. People disagree with that. Other sports haven't put a line down, it seems. Faisal in Johannesburg on boxing. How's it?
How's it, John? I thought about this problem ever since the Caster Semenya saga, and I think I found a solution.
Okay.
What they should have is an extra division. They should be the Olympic should have a division for males, a division for females, and a division for other. That's a simple. It's you have an extra division and you have the rules to classify as males, females, and those who do not classify in those two particular division goes on to the other division, and they all compete in that particular one.
Okay.
And also, I'll go one more further.
Yes.
I'll even go one further. I said let's have an enhanced drug division as well.
Well, they're talking about that, aren't they? There's the enhanced games.
That's right. So you have an extra division, and you formulate the rules according to the extra.
All right, let's talk about it. Let's take an example of somebody like Caster Semenya, where it's natural.
Yes.
She's got naturally high testosterone levels. She would say, "Well, I don't want to be in the special the high testosterone games. I want to be in the women's games where I deserve to be."
No, but that's exactly the thing. You're going to have a lot of clash of gender. But if you have the rules to specifically say, well, immaterial what your personal feelings of being a woman.
This is the line.
This is the line. That's how the rules work. And you compete in that particular division. It's to me that is as simple as that.
As simple as that, says Faisal, to start a new division. James is in Johannesburg. Turn your radio down, please, James. Thank you very much.
Thank
Go
you very
ahead.
much. Yeah, my brother. Yeah, I'm thinking about this the GNU issue. You see, I think this is it's sour grapes, my brother. You can't call out other people who are grouping together for the same purpose that you also would like to be there, and you don't want to be there, and you want to blame them. It can't be. And then what do you say? For instance, if somebody says because they are a few, then what about Good Party? What about PA? What about IFP? What about the NFP? What about all those guys who are there, who wanted to be there? And then only mention 2 people. And then you say, we must all call it one thing. We must all realize and call it. So you're trying to recruit everybody else. But when those people are trying to recruit you, you don't want to go there. What does it mean?
James in Johannesburg with, is it the last say? I think maybe we've got time. We've got time for one more voice note. Let's play another one about the sport.
Morning, John. It's James from Cape Town. I just wanted to comment on the transgender boxing issue. My whole problem with this is that we have had the IOC and also the International Athletics Federation penalize Caster Semenya for pretty much the same thing. And now, essentially, it's okay for these 2 boxers to compete. And so it just seems like a bit of a case of double standards.
It's not the first time this week the IOC's been compared or been criticised for double standards. That's the programme. Been a pleasure to be with you for the week. I'll be back again next week in for Stephen, but join me for my music show tomorrow night if you're awake. It's just about news time. Essential cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, independent investigation into procurement of Telkom towers launched and ANC NEC reflecting on party's performance in May polls. Good morning. The Public Works and Infrastructure Minister, Dean McPherson, has described as unacceptable spending over 200 million rand on renovating a building which has remained unoccupied. He was referring to the Telkom towers in the Pretoria CBD, which was procured in 2016 at a cost of 695 million rand to serve as the SAPS headquarters. Yesterday, McPherson conducted an oversight inspection of what has been described as one of his department's problematic facilities. He says he's launched an independent investigation into the procurement of the building.
As the Minister of Public Works and Infrastructure, I will be referring the purchase of the former Telkom headquarters building in 2016 for 695 million rand and its subsequent renovation for 250 million rand for an independent investigation to provide me with recommendations within 60 days, following the appointment of a panel, on the necessary steps to address and remedy the situation we now find ourselves in. It is simply unacceptable that for the past 8 years, the building behind us and subsequently around us have been barely used and have been left vacant, allowing them to be vandalized and occupied by criminal elements.
The ANC's National Executive Committee meeting is reflecting on the outcomes of the May 29th election, which saw the party dip below 50% for the first time in 3 decades. The 6-day meeting of the ANC's highest decision-making body started yesterday in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. The ANC's first Deputy Secretary-General, Nomvula Mokonyane, and the party's head of elections, Mdumiseni Ntuli, are expected to report back on the reflections of the elections and what led to the ANC losing its majority, forcing it into a government of national unity. Earlier, the party Secretary-General Figle Mbalula said the outcomes of the meeting of the NEC would be tabled at its Lekgotla starting on Sunday.
We will then report to the Lekgotla the work and the decisions of the National Executive Committee in the form of this perspective. How this moment is interpreted by the National Executive Committee. We'll then look at governance, what affect the people and what steps we are going to take, what steps have already been taken to do what we have said we want to do in the manifesto. The cost of living, job creation, the expenditure in terms of the budget, what are we going to do, and so on in terms of governance situation in the country.
The Umkhonto weSizwe Party Youth League says it's shocked that Teachers Union SATU in Gauteng is not supporting young people who are protesting against the termination of teacher assistant contracts. 32,000 teacher assistants were employed as part of the Youth Brigade program in public schools across the province. They are demanding permanent employment from the government. It's reported that police fired rubber bullets to disperse the protesters. The league has strongly condemned the violent police response. The league's acting Secretary General Sithembile Nkosi.
The unemployment rate is sitting at an alarming rate of about 59.7%. And this termination of contracts of these 32,000 young people just only exacerbates the already critical issue. And more young people are being pushed into a corner of desperation, into unemployment and into poverty. And right now they need someone to be in their corner. They need someone to be with them.
The South African Jewish Board of Deputies says it has noted the South African government statement condemning the killing of Hamas senior leader Ismail Haniyeh. The board says the government is ignoring Haniyeh's atrocities both against the people of Gaza and Israeli civilians. Ditaba Tsotetsi reports.
In a statement, the South African Jewish Board of Deputies says it also noted that South Africa has chosen to mention that Haniyeh was part of a negotiating team working to secure a ceasefire. It says what the statement fails to recognize is that Haniyeh was one of the masterminds of the October 7th attacks in Israel. It says by refusing to release the hostages that his movement holds, Haniyeh extended the agonizing plight of Gazans.